That's right, a little smooth jazz for you guys today. A little 1970s, 1960s smooth jazz. You gotta love that shit. Right? You're on. That's right. 16-bit, 8-bit, 20-bit, who cares? But I do care about your guys' ears, so. Just so you know. Ta-da! There we go. See? A lot better, right? Pog chat. Pogs in the chat. Bring a service beta. Service beta release. Service beta release of Windows. I don't even know why. Why is that happening, folks? Why is this my life? Somehow, I didn't turn off the, I didn't turn it off, the old beta invite, and I got upgraded by mistake. What are you gonna do? That's right, chat. Sometimes your streamer can be an idiot, and that's okay. Sometimes you say, ha ha ha. That's right. Always an idiot. You're the first to admit it. The hell was that?
Welcome to Democracy Now!, Democracy Now!
Damn
Iran,
right.
with hundreds of attacks reported in the last 24 hours.
Literally, we got lots to report. Not even lying. Too much to talk about. Also got this game that's been taking over my life called Marathon, by the way, which, yeah, I played all weekend. Okay. Yeah, that's right. It is what it is. It's rare these days, actually, that I get that hooked on a game.
Alone. In Tehran, there were reports of massive explosions earlier today after Israeli attacks on fuel depots caused fires to burn for hours, spawning a thick cloud of toxic smoke over the city of 10 million people as it rained oil rain.
That's a good shot.
Many residents complained they had trouble breathing as black raindrops full of toxic chemicals fell across Tehran. Officials warn the precipitation contains toxic hydrocarbon compounds as well as sulfur and nitrogen oxides. The Iranian Red Crescent Society reports 10,000 civilian structures have been damaged across Iran in U.S. and Israeli strikes, including homes, schools, and almost 36 medical facilities. Among the dead are 175 people, the majority children, mainly girls, killed when bombs struck a school in the southern city of Minab on the first day of the U.S.-Israeli attacks. On Saturday, President Trump and Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth denied the U.S. was responsible for the bombing of the girls' school. They spoke to reporters aboard Air Force One.
Did the United States bomb a girls' elementary school in southern Iran on the first day of the war and kill 175 people?
In my opinion, based on what I've seen, that was done by Iran.
Is that
true,
Mr. Hegseth? It was Iran who did that?
We're certainly investigating.
Still investigating.
But the only side that targets civilians is Iran.
We think it was done by Iran.
But a New York Times investigation found direct video evidence contradicting Trump's claims. The video shows a U.S. Tomahawk missile damaged the school at the same time as a U.S. attack on an adjacent naval base operated by the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps. Meanwhile, top officials in Iran have pledged allegiance to Mujtaba Khamenei as the country's new supreme leader after the U.S.-Israeli coalition killed his father, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, in a February 28th airstrike. Khamenei's ascension to supreme leader came after President Trump warned if he, quote, doesn't get approval from us, he's not going to last long, unquote. Trump said last week he would choose a great and acceptable leader after Iran's unconditional surrender. In Tehran, Iran's president, Masoud Pezeshkian, on Sunday ruled out any capitulation to the U.S. and Israel.
America and Israel, who without any hesitation kill 168 innocent children, feel no shame for killing these children. They feel no shame for massacring 50,000 to 60,000 people in Gaza. And then they want to say that we in Iran want to kill people. We stand against those who attack our country with full force and will respond with full force.
In Washington, the State Department's declared the U.S. war of choice against Iran an emergency, allowing the Trump administration to bypass congressional approval to sell more than 20,000 bombs to Israel. The weapons are valued at nearly $660 million. Meanwhile, Democratic House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries has declined to say whether he'll block additional funding for the Pentagon's war against Iran, telling NBC's Meet the Press, quote, "We'll walk that bridge when we come to it." Iran's military continues to launch missiles and one-way attack drones at Israel, as well as U.S. military bases across the Middle East and the countries that host them. Earlier today, Iranian strikes killed 2 people in Israel, seriously wounding a third. Elsewhere, Iranian strikes have destroyed radar, communications, and air defense systems in Qatar, the UAE, Jordan, Bahrain, Kuwait, and Saudi Arabia. The attacks continued even after Iran's president issued an apology for Iranian strikes on Gulf states and said Iran would not strike targets in the region. In Iraq, fires broke out in buildings belonging to U.S. corporations Halliburton and KBR after an Iranian drone attack in Basra targeted a compound housing workers of foreign oil companies. Saudi Arabia reported its first deaths from Iran's attacks, reporting a strike on a residential area that killed 2 people. Bahrain's government reports an Iranian drone attack damaged a water desalination plant and injured 3 people. Roughly 100 million people across the Gulf region rely on desalination plants for their drinking water. Elsewhere, Bahrain's state-owned Bapco Energies company has declared force majeure, declaring it can no longer honor its contracts after an Iranian attack set its only oil refinery on fire. Meanwhile, police in Norway are investigating an explosion at the U.S. Embassy in Oslo early Sunday morning as a potential act of terrorism. No suspects have been identified in what appeared to be an intentional explosion that caused minor damage and no injuries. Lebanon's health ministry reports more than 500,000 people have been displaced in the week since Israel resumed full-scale attacks on Lebanon, with forced displacement orders affecting hundreds of thousands of people. So far, Israel's assault has killed 394 people in Lebanon, including 83 children, 42 women, and 9 rescue workers. Meanwhile, Human Rights Watch warns Israel's military has once again used white phosphorus munitions in residential areas in southern Lebanon, a violation of international humanitarian law. In the occupied West Bank, Palestinians held a funeral Sunday for 3 Palestinians killed after Israeli settlers attacked them near the village of Kirbat Abu Falah. 2 Palestinians were shot dead by settlers during the overnight attack early Sunday. Then a 3rd Palestinian suffocated to death as Israeli soldiers fired tear gas at crowds that gathered to confront the attackers. The killings bring the death toll from settler attacks on Palestinians in the West Bank to 6 in just the past week. Israel's continuing to attack the Gaza Strip in violation of the U.S.-brokered ceasefire agreement it agreed to in October. On Sunday, Israeli tank shells hit a tent encampment housing displaced families in the western Nuseirat area, killing at least 3 people, including 2 girls, while wounding 10 others, including children. Another strike in western Gaza City killed 3 men, including 31-year-old paramedic Abdurrahman Hosni Hamdouna. This follows an Israeli drone attack on Saturday that killed a father and his daughter in central Khan Yunis. Gaza's health ministry reports about 640 Palestinians have been killed by Israeli fire since the ceasefire was supposed to have taken effect 150 days ago. The Pentagon reports another member of the U.S. military has died in combat, the 7th since President Trump and Israel launched a full-scale military assault on Iran late last month. The Associated Press reports the service member was an Army soldier who died of injuries sustained during an Iranian attack on U.S. troops in Saudi Arabia on March 1st. CENTCOM also reports an 8th service member has died in Kuwait due to what officials called a health-related incident. On Saturday, President Trump, First Lady Melania Trump, Vice President J.D. Vance, and Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth attended a dignified transfer ceremony at Dover Air Force Base in Delaware for 6 Army members killed by Iranian attacks on Kuwait. The price of oil has surged past $110 per barrel as Iran continues to attack fossil fuel facilities across the Middle East while bringing tanker traffic through the Strait of Hormuz to a standstill.
No shit.
It's the biggest spike in oil prices since the early months of Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine in 2022, with some analysts warning oil could hit $150 per barrel within weeks. The Wall Street Journal is calling this the most severe shock to energy markets since the 1970s. The U.S. economy lost 92,000 jobs in February, with the unemployment rate ticking up to 4.4%, according to new data from the Bureau of Labor Statistics. Economists were predicting employers had actually added 50,000 jobs last month, but job losses in February resulted in the 2nd largest decline in monthly job creation since the COVID pandemic. Tens of thousands of women around the world marked International Women's Day by demonstrating against gender-based violence and calling for an end to the U.S.-Israeli war on Iran. Here in the U.S., protesters gathered at Zorro Ranch in Albuquerque, New Mexico, where the late convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein sexually abused and trafficked underage girls and young women. Protesters gathered outside Trump Tower here in New York, calling it the Believe Survivors demonstration. In France, 73-year-old rape survivor Gisèle Pellicotte led a march calling for an end to sexual violence. In Brazil, protesters expressed outrage over the gang rape of a 17-year-old girl in Rio de Janeiro earlier this year. In Peru, thousands of women marched in the capital Lima, demanding government action against gender-based violence.
For Women's Day, what we're calling on all peasant and indigenous women is that we can't give up. We know life circumstances are very hard because climate change has devastated everything in Peru. Cities are disappearing. So what we have to do, as our grandmothers, grandfathers, and ancestors always taught us, is rise up from the dust with our native seeds. We'll keep guaranteeing life and peace, guaranteeing food sovereignty. Be strong, comrades.
The U.S. and Ecuador announced Friday they carried out a joint operation to bomb a drug traffickers' training camp in northeast Ecuador near the Colombian border. The camp belonged to the Comandos de la Frontera, a Colombian crime group made up of former members of the FARC. Meanwhile, the Pentagon killed 6 men in an attack on what it called a drug smuggling vessel in the eastern Pacific Ocean. Once again, the Pentagon provided no evidence the ship had been involved in ferrying drugs, though it posted video on social media showing an attack on a civilian vessel. The latest killing brings the Pentagon's claimed death toll in similar attacks to at least 157. President Trump gathered leaders from 12 Latin American countries at his golf club near Miami over the weekend at the inaugural summit of what Trump is calling the Shield of the Americas. Attendees included right-wing leaders Nayib Bukele of El Salvador, Javier Milei of Argentina. The leftist leaders of 3 of Latin America's biggest economies, Brazil, Mexico, and Colombia, were not invited. At the summit, Trump vowed to go after drug cartels and blasted foreign influence in the region, particularly Chinese economic and political interests. The summit comes just 2 months after the U.S. abducted Venezuela's former president, Nicolas Maduro, and his wife. In Nepal, 35-year-old former rapper Balendra Shah is set to become the country's next prime minister after his party secured a landslide victory in parliamentary elections. It's the first election since youth protesters toppled the former government. Shah is the former mayor of Kathmandu. He was a leader of the Gen Z-led protest movement, which was sparked by a ban on social media and driven by a lack of economic opportunities. And civil rights leaders and former U.S. presidents paid their respects to the Reverend Jesse Jackson at his funeral in Chicago Friday. Barack Obama, Joe Biden, Bill Clinton attended the memorial service at the House of Hope on Chicago's South Side. Kamala Harris, Hillary Clinton, and Gavin Newsom were also in attendance. And those are some of the headlines. This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. Thanks for watching Democracy Now! On YouTube. Subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications to make sure you never miss a video.
Let's go, chat. Okay, well.
Welcome to Democracy Now! This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. As the U.S.-Israeli war on Iran rages on, U.S. military commanders have reportedly been invoking extremist Christian rhetoric about biblical end times, selling the conflict to American troops as a holy war. The watchdog Military Religious Freedom Foundation says it's been inundated with more than 200 complaints from members across all branches of the U.S. military regarding these comments. One combat unit commander reportedly said the war is part of God's divine plan, and that, quote, President Trump has been anointed by Jesus to light the signal fire in Iran to cause Armageddon and mark his return to Earth.
Fuck this guy, man. Fuck this guy.
For more, we go to Albuquerque, New Mexico, where we're joined by Mikey Weinstein, founder and president of the Military Religious Freedom Foundation. In this last 5 minutes we have, Mikey, if you can talk about the complaints you've received and who are these commanders who are saying this is a holy war?
Yes, Amy. Our foundation, our main purpose is to protect the wall separating church and state in the technologically most lethal organization ever created by our species, which is the U.S. military. As soon as the war began last Saturday, a week ago, this past Saturday, we started getting inundated by calls from members of the military.
These are the kind of military guys I like.
Supervisors and commanders across the branches, both in the CONUS, which is the continental United States, and internationally, were invoking the fact that this was great news. They were gleeful. They were joyful. They were euphoric because this was a signal that pursuant to the Christian eschatological aspects of the end times in the book of Revelation, that all of this was serving as, if you will, an accelerant or lubricant to bring their version of weaponized Jesus back, which I will also make it clear includes a metric of a 200-mile-long river, 4.5 feet deep, Amy, filled with nothing but the human blood of those that their version of Jesus is slaughtered at the Battle of Armageddon. So we were getting 15, 20, 25 calls a day the first several days that we were out there. We finally broke this story with journalist Jonathan Larson, and then it went viral. And so what we are reporting now is that we have over 200 complaints, and that we have from 50 different installations. But it's terrifying when you try to put a theological perspective from Christian extremism with what's happening right now, particularly having listened to your whole show today. I'm reminded of the second inaugural speech by Abraham Lincoln when he chastised both sides in the Civil War for trying to say that God was on their side, which exacerbated the violence, the bloodshed, the injuries, and the death.
Thank you, sir.
Last month, Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth invited the controversial Christian nationalist pastor Doug Wilson to lead the Pentagon's prayer service. Wilson's opposed Muslims holding public office and does not believe women should be allowed to vote. Can you talk about Hegseth's tenure as head of the defense, what Trump calls the War Department, and what concerns you most about his conflation of church and state?
I was warned by your producers not to cuss. So I will refer to Hegseth as a piece of feces as opposed to the regular word. He's viewed by senior leadership as a bully and a poser. He is nothing but a Christian nationalist lackey. You forgot to mention, or I'll mention that Doug Wilson also believes that the Civil War was justified biblically. And of course, that a lot of slave owners, he reminds everybody, had a really nice relationship, with their slaves, the same way they did with their living room furniture. He believes that the Jews killed Jesus. Muslims have no right to participate in government. And if you're LGBTQIA+, you probably don't have a right to live. The bottom line is Hegseth has created a template that the only approved member of the U.S. military is to be straight, white, Christian nationalist, and male. So why is anybody surprised that with that template going down in a hierarchical organization, tribal, adversarial, communal, and ritualistic like the U.S. military, that you have subordinate commanders, all of whom are trying to get promoted, that are following the exact same thing. We saw this happen before when the Israeli Defense Forces moved into Gaza and started attacking the Palestinians. We had
this guy's good at what he does.
We had commanders saying, well, this is also sparking the Battle of Armageddon. But whenever you attach an extremist aspect of any religious faith to that machinery, Amy, of the faith responsible for war, we do not end up with little creeks, streams, ponds, or lakes.
Nope.
Amy, we end up with one thing: oceans and oceans of blood, like the color of my shirt.
We have 20 seconds. What risks do service members face for reporting religious comments made by U.S. commanders?
If they do that officially, they become essentially what we call a tarantula on a wedding cake. Amy, you and I have been to lots of weddings. Tarantulas on wedding cakes, that doesn't bode well for the tarantula or the wedding cake.
Mikey Weinstein, founder and president of Military Religious Freedom Foundation, speaking to us from Albuquerque, New Mexico. And that does it.
As Donald Trump and Benjamin Netanyahu's war in Iran stretches into its second week, it is becoming clearer and clearer the United States was responsible for that strike on an Iranian girls' elementary school in the town of Minab.
No shit.
The strike killed at least 165 people, most of them children. Again, so far, the Pentagon has not officially claimed responsibility for the tragedy, but analyses from the New York Times, the Washington Post, some other outlets as well, all point to it being an attack by the United States.
Happy Monday, folks.
That while U.S. investigators have not reached a final determination,
no shit Monday.
It is likely we were responsible. The reporting suggests it appears to have been an accident. The school was hit while the U.S. was striking a nearby Iranian naval base. It appeared this unfathomable tragedy, the mass slaughter of children playing at school, was simply the result of the ethos that this administration has bragged about, that the whole kind of shoot first, ask questions later attitude, an attitude that Pete Hegseth has been promoting for months before and then even after this strike.
Flying over Tehran, flying over Iran, flying over their capital, flying over the IRGC, Iranian leaders looking up and seeing only U.S. and Israeli air power every minute of every day until we decide it's over. And Iran will be able to do nothing about it. Death and destruction.
Keep what that guy just said in mind when you listen to this fucking piece of shit. And I can say it, this piece of shit talk.
Destruction from the sky.
I'm going to say it again, this piece of shit, because I know that gentleman that was on wanted to say that. And I can say it, so I will for him.
All day
you piece
long.
Of shit. Pete
We're playing for
Hegseth.
keeps. Our warfighters have maximum authorities granted personally by the president and yours truly. Our rules of engagement are bold, precise, and designed to unleash American power, not shackle it. This was never meant to be a fair fight, and it is not a fair fight. We are punching them while they're down, which is exactly how it should be.
Mehdi Hassan is the founder of Zateo, media organization, host of the weekly show Mehdi Unfiltered, along with like 9 other shows that he runs over
Can you
there,
just spit on him, please?
20 hours a day.
People spit.
Mehdi, it is clear that one of the horrible things about war is that there are accidents that happen. This is something that happens in all wars. I remember the U.S. bombing and NATO bombing the Chinese embassy in Serbia during that war. It was clearly an accident, also horrible. And this appears to be that. But the context here is that the Secretary of Defense has kind of bragged about, at an operational level, that we're not going to care about this kind of thing.
Not at all. I mean, he's gone out of his way to say that no more stupid rules of engagement, he called it. No more politically correct wars. That is their attitude towards the killing of people in Iran. He's just done an interview with 60 Minutes, Chris. I just saw the clip before I came on, where he said the only people who are worried are Iranians who are going to be killed, like talking generally about all Iranians. This is the problem now. On the very first day of this war, they killed 160 kids. And it hasn't stopped, Chris. It's not just this attack. They attacked an elementary school today in Tehran. They've attacked a dozen hospitals, according to the World Health Organization. When I say they, the United States and Israel. This is a joint war from 2 countries that don't have great records when it comes to bombing civilian targets. According to UNICEF, 1,200 civilians killed in Iran in 6 days, 200 children. Part of the reason for this war, Chris, was supposed to be protecting the Iranian people against the regime. How's that working out so far? It's disgusting what happened on day one. And there's also talk, Chris, of them using AI to rush the number of targets out, of using Claude and Maven from Palantir and Anthropic to generate 1,000 targets a day. Of course they're going to hit schools and hospitals if that's how they're doing this targeting. And I would also point out that right now they've reduced, Chris, they've just basically gutted the office at the Pentagon where people used to try and mitigate civilian harm. They've basically firing all the people who work in the civilian mitigation harm unit at the Pentagon. 160 people. These are people, Hegseth, Trump and co, who don't care about civilian casualties.
Yeah, that point about the reverberations of this, obviously on the first order of just the human loss of life. But, you know, Iran has just come through a period in which there were, according to independent human rights groups, as many as possibly 30,000 Iranians killed by their own government.
It's not true.
Protests. It could have been much smaller.
It's a lot smaller than that. He's going with the lie. It's not that much. I'm not defending Iran. I'm just saying it's not that much.
More than that, it might have gone up to that number.
None amount of them killing their people, in my opinion, justifies war on Iran, period.
I think it's, we don't have polling inside Iran, obviously, but there is a significant amount of people, perhaps a majority, maybe even a large majority, that genuinely do hate this government. It's incredibly unpopular. Certainly, it's also got people that hate it across the region for all sorts of other reasons that they have experienced, whether in Lebanon or Syria and others. And so just from the sort of geopolitical strategic point, like on day one, to have this and to have the rhetoric being into the region, we don't care if you live or die, to not make the distinction between like civilians and combatants, just also strikes me as like wildly self-defeating at just the sort of tactical level.
Yes.
Need a comb.
It's a moral abomination. And yes, it's tactically stupid. They bombed a submarine and just let the sailors drown.
I'm not going to use a comb like Dr. Disrespect.
Even the Nazis didn't do that during World War II, apparently. Even the Nazis collected people from the water. This is insane rhetoric, insane behavior from people who don't give a damn. Donald Trump has never given a damn about Iranian lives. I see people in the diaspora cheering on this war, and I feel bad for them because Donald Trump screws over everyone, and he's going to screw over the Iranian people as well.
Yes, sir,
he's a guy
is.
who has deported Iranians back to that government innocent to be tortured or oppressed. He doesn't care about the Iranian people. We're seeing that with this war. You cannot bring, I thought we learned this, Chris, decades ago. You don't liberate people at the barrel of a gun with bombs. This is absurd.
No.
We learned nothing from Iraq or Afghanistan. And all we seem to have learned is from Gaza. And that is Israel has learned that you can bomb hospitals and schools with impunity and no one's going to stop you. And the Israeli playbook is definitely that. I mean, the Americans are only half-heartedly into this war. The Israelis are really into this war. You may have seen, Chris, the former Israeli intelligence official who said this week, you know what? Israel doesn't care if there's a coup. Israel doesn't care if there are protests. Israel doesn't care if there's a civil war. Israel doesn't care about the future of the Iranian people. And that's, at least you told the truth there.
Yeah, he's right.
Yeah, it was a think tank in Tel Aviv talking to the Financial Times.
He's a former Israeli intelligence official who worked on the Iran desk, Danny Citronowitz.
Yeah, and he was saying basically, look, our outcome from our defense perspective, our strategic aim here is a weakened regime that can't threaten us. Whatever that looks like, it doesn't matter. The U.S., however, I mean, this is sort of the last point here is, this is just in a very different public opinion universe than the Iraq War happened. And it does strike me that is going to be relevant very quickly in terms of how this continues.
I saw someone point out today, Chris, that the polling in support of this war is as unpopular on day 6 as the Iraq war was in 2014, right? It took years for the Iraq war to become really, really unpopular.
It's true.
And George Bush left office, in a very unpopular way. But this, most American wars, the public gets behind.
This war was never popular with anyone. What are you kidding me?
Afghanistan, Iraq, you get behind that war. No, not in this war. And I think it's only going to get more unpopular as more civilians die. I think people are going to see what's happening. I keep thinking of that meme, that sketch from the British comedy show Mitchell and Webb, where the two Nazi generals look at each other and say, are we the baddies? And I think at some point we're going to have to ask ourselves, we're the ones killing Iranian civilians? I thought we were going to protect the Iranian civilians. Why are we bombing schools and hospitals and residential buildings? Why are we helping Israel flatten Tehran while they also, by the way, flatten Beirut? How is this making us safer? And how is this moral? I don't think most Americans want this.
He's right.
Sounds great to have you. Thank you very much.
Most Americans don't, folks. Don't let anyone fool you. Wait, what?
We have confirmed reports from U.S. officials.
Oh, that was just a fucking... Hello? This thing is not working. Broad. There we go. My sound filter wasn't working. What is happening?
Russia is providing intelligence to Iran to help it target U.S. assets in the region. I'm sure this is something that does not please the president whatsoever. Has he spoken to Putin about it?
Well, look, I'll leave that to the...
That's right. I spoke to old Pooty Poo, and he said he didn't care. He said, fuck me. We don't get along like we used to.
He would never admit it. Guys, he would never admit it, right? Come on. Right? Like... He just never would admit it. You know what I mean?
President to answer himself. But what I will tell you, John, we don't comment on intelligence reports that are leaked to the press. Whether or not this happened, frankly, it does not really matter because President Trump and the United States military are absolutely decimating the Iranian terrorist regime.
Wow.
Well, it does really matter, and this does matter.
You see the word I used on my tag? Wow, look at that. Yep. Less gourmet. Yeah, probably not. Yeah, exactly. Based.
Decimating. It matters to people in the United States of America. The White House, though.
I don't even know she said that.
The line throughout the weekend, even the president.
I didn't even know she said that.
On Air Force One, well, basically, it doesn't matter. We do it to them, too. Now, it doesn't work that way. When you go to war and you have Russia helping your enemy in that war, target Americans, kill Americans, that matters. And this comes the same. This reporting came the same day that for some
No, he's going to be like, yeah,
House,
you know, people die in the war. It's not a war unless they die. Hate to see it. Too bad.
And it came
It's
the
going to be the
same
next
week
thing he's going to
that
say.
the Ukraine.
Remember how he was always like, with the Russian war and Ukraine, he'd always say, everyone's dying. I hate to see the dying on both sides. They're both dying. 5,000 a day. You know, now he's going to say the same thing. Opposite,
who
complete
are actually
opposite.
helping us
right?
in this war.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not targeting us. So just so people in the White House can understand why this matters, the Russians are helping the Iranians target Americans. That's on one side.
Yeah, hello?
On the other
We
side,
know.
the Ukrainians are helping Americans with what they've learned, intercepting Iranian-made drones that were sent to their front line. So the Ukrainians are helping us in this war. Russia is trying to kill American troops.
Yeah.
It matters.
Yeah,
And Mika, the fact that this is still
Okay.
going on 10 years later,
No
the fact
shit.
that you still have these bizarre
Why don't you
statements
call your
about
friend?
Vladimir
Why don't you call your dear old friend Donnie Don, who you used to dance around with and let Mika dance with once, probably? Hello? How about, you shared Mika with him once. Now, how about you call your buddy up and say, Donald, you got dementia. How about you fucking straighten up? Thought you guys were friends. Joe? Oh, come on. You and Joe and Mika. Joe, you and Mika and Donald all hanging out with... Come on, I can see it now. You guys were having so much fun. I know I'm ruining it for you, aren't I, Joe? Okay.
Putin targeting and trying
this
to
guy's
kill
annoying,
Americans,
dude. He pisses
saying
me off.
that doesn't matter is a real problem. I guess people in the White House and the MAGA crowd can yell, Russia hoax, Russia hoax. Maybe that makes him feel better, but it doesn't change a central fact. Vladimir Putin and Russia, according to these reports, are helping Iran target America.
Yeah.
To kill American troops. And on the other side, Zelensky is actually helping us. And the White House is saying it doesn't matter. It matters. It matters a great deal. It matters to Americans. And it matters why after 10 years, Donald Trump is still doing this, still claiming that Russia is winning on the front lines against the Ukrainians when they've had a savagely bad month, the worst month, the Russians, in 2 or 3 years. And yet they still in the White House keep spinning for Vladimir Putin, suggesting he's going to win this war. I've been hearing from the White House for a year now, the Donbass is about to get into Russia's hand. It's not. It's not. Maybe it will one day, but the wishful thinking over the past year is ridiculous, while the Ukrainians over the past month have been picking up more Russian territory than any time since 2023.
There seems to be also an attempt to distract from these facts and what's really important here with kind of a grotesque tone out of the White House, like we've killed people, destruction, we've decimated them, kill, kill, kill. And from the
decimate, like I said.
Secretary of Defense, I can't say Secretary of War, can't do it, but I guess that's what they call it.
Not
but
what
there's
he is.
such
He
a,
can call
it's
himself whatever he
grotesque,
wants
but
to
it's
call
got this
himself.
bro culture attached to it, where
it's the
like,
opposite.
we
It's the
kill
opposite of
everyone,
having
aren't
the
you?
bro culture. No,
Yeah,
it's the
I know.
opposite of that, though.
It's actually,
David Ignatius,
what's the word when you're
David
covering for
Ignatius,
something?
they're sitting back, David, and they're letting Russia target Americans to kill Americans. And they're saying, oh, it doesn't matter, we're so tough. And we know it does matter, and there's nothing tough about finding out that Russia is helping Iran target Americans to kill them. And this
Yeah,
just
shut up,
blow it
Mika. He
off.
just basically
Please
said,
help
I
me.
hate
Give
him,
me,
dude.
Give me
He
some
always is
parallel
making her
where
shut
American
up.
president said it didn't matter that a country was helping another country target and kill Americans.
Never lets Mika finish her sentence.
The only thing that you can imagine is that the White House recognizes that addressing this directly right now makes this war much more dangerous. If you decide
Really?
that Russia is in fact your adversary, along with Iran, what are you going to do about it? But I think
True.
What you're describing, reports of Russian assistance to Iran reports also that Iranian ships are leaving China, carrying chemicals that are crucial for the Iranian war effort. Tell us that as we start the second week, this war is getting more dangerous.
Yeah,
the
no
risk
shit.
that it will lead to a broader confrontation.
All of this we predicted last week before it started.
Drawing in the United States, Russia, and China is increasing.
Call me not surprised.
I think that's one reason I'm beginning to hear talk, including
None of
from
this is
Israeli
surprise.
officials, about possible ways to achieve military goals without going even further down this really deadly road of political confrontation. Israelis are telling me last night, we are about to achieve our military objectives in Iran within the next several days. We don't need regime change in Iran to achieve our military goals. I'll be very curious whether the White House picks up that theme.
Okay, sure.
Two things here.
Yeah, the only problem with that, Jonathan O'Meara, is this: that you have the only problem is you have the president saying we're going to get regime change, and then you have the president saying Khomeini's son is not an acceptable replacement. I'm just talking about the politics for Donald Trump, because I think the instinct would be to leave in the next week to 10 days, tear up the military targets, say mission accomplished, come home, unlike George W. Bush. The problem is when the Iranians have been so defiant to Donald Trump in a way he's not used to, and actually appoint Khomeini's son, who in many ways, as David said, is even more militant than the father. It's hard to come home and say mission accomplished under that scenario. I want this mission accomplished.
Wow.
I mean, I made no secret throughout my adult life that this Iranian regime since 1979 has been the epicenter of terror.
You don't have to say that, motherfucker.
I'm just saying it's going to be more difficult for this president or any president to leave in a 2-week time frame, which I think was his original intention, when you have the new supreme ruler even more militant than the one who was killed the first night of the strikes.
Within the first hours of this war starting, many of us, the Washington or close Trump observers immediately began looking for, okay, where's his off-ramp? We know he prefers these one-and-done big strikes. He doesn't want to prolong conflict. He spoke out against them in the past. How does he declare victory and get out? It is hard to see right now, though, what that victory is. First of all, because they never really laid out their objectives at the start of the war. But now, Joe, as you say, perhaps even harder liner is in power. It's going to be very difficult to suggest that things have gotten better there in Iran in any way, perhaps other than some of its military assets being blown up. So there's that. Tamika's point about the bro culture, the Department of Defense is putting out these videos, like interspersed with like movie clips and like hard-hitting NFL action with scenes of war.
Yeah.
It's grotesque and not how we've ever seen before. That's
tracks you haven't asked for other people.
Grotesque, coined here this morning by Ms. Brzezinski.
He's right.
But Caddy, let's go back to the Russia bit for a moment, because it is, even for a decade of Donald Trump being deferential to Vladimir Putin every chance he gets,
actually fucked up.
Russia's helping Iran target U.S. assets. And he said, and I'm paraphrasing just slightly, well, they, meaning Russia, said, we do it too, wouldn't they? Sort of drawing a moral equivalence. Very reminiscent of what he did on this show a decade or so ago, when he suggested that Americans killed journalists and dissidents too, which of course Vladimir Putin does. We don't. And it also comes, Caddy, at a moment where Trump, in his rhetoric, has gotten very critical of Zelensky for not coming to the table with a deal to end that war, once again claiming, with no evidence, Putin wants peace and Zelensky doesn't.
Yeah, I mean, this has been a war of, even in the short space of 10 days, already of unintended consequences. We went into this war with Donald Trump still being rude about Vladimir Zelensky, now needing America could well do with Ukrainian help in how to tackle those Iranian drones. You've got Russia, which has had a reprieve on some of its oil exports to India, if only for a month, in order to kind of take out some of the pressure on global oil prices. And at the same time, you have a whole load of American munitions being used up in the Gulf. You have more air defenses American air defenses being supplied to Gulf countries than have been supplied to Ukraine. That's going to hurt
That's
Ukraine's
crazy, bro.
efforts against Russia. So this has global ramifications, clearly, what is happening in the region. I mean, I think that the problem with not having a clear entry strategy and therefore not a clear moment when you can call victory is that, let's say we have the regime in place, but David's reporting is right. The Israelis are pretty much finished with their list of military targets. What happens in 6 months if the Iranians start rebuilding? What happens in 2 years if the Iranians start rebuilding? What happens in 5 years if the Iranians start rebuilding? Do we just keep going back every time the Iranian regime decides to try to reconstitute something? The only way to really neutralize, my understanding is, the threat of Iran's nuclear program in particular is through negotiation. Now, maybe the thinking in the White House is, well, we obliterate their missiles and we bomb the heck out of them, and that forces them to negotiate. But there isn't much sign at the moment that the government that's been installed since the bombing began is in a mood to negotiate.
Yeah, they're not. As they shouldn't be. Right? Chat? Oh. What the fuck?
Trump has been around for too long as a feature in our lives to do this as like, I'm writing, and it shall go on forever, it feels, to be like, I'm, writing him off. But what they're talking about is a very real change in sentiments. They say, the base is with him, and the MAGA base has been with him since he, came down the golden escalator. So there has been a big drop in his support among non-college voters, down to -9 approval. But the economy is what people show up to vote on, and his ratings on the economy are absolutely dismal. Of the average of polls, it's at -18. You have unemployment up, jobs numbers have been consistently terrible. You have Peter Navarro out today kind of pre-butting what will be a bad jobs report. Tax Foundation had a new report saying that the average American household paid an extra $1,000 last year because of the tariffs. It'll go up to $1,300 this year. Consistent.
Useless. Useless.
Voters say, though, Trump isn't focused on the things that they care about, which is lowering prices. And I think that there are two plot lines that the administration, for obvious reasons, really want to ignore, but matter to voters. First of all, Donald Trump and his family, their corruption. This story, Andy McCarthy's doing a series for the National Review on it. All the crypto money that they're taking in from the UAE and others is a really big deal. And then what's going on with the Epstein files. And I'm not making this partisan. I'm saying it is an elite problem. John Ossoff is now calling it the Epstein class and even name-checked George Soros in his campaign rally. If it's us versus them, and Trump is just saying, ignore it, it's going to go away. And you have Howard Lutnick, for instance, testifying that he went to the island in 2012 when he said in 2000.
You never cared about this until now because Trump won. This is just like immigration. You didn't care about all the illegals until Trump won, and now you care about Epstein.
Well,
Trump's fine under Epstein.
I was obviously very careful to say that. I am not accusing the president of doing anything. I'm saying that he has an Epstein files problem, and he knows it.
No one has a problem.
Given the fact that Trump himself is named in the Epstein files 38,000
Sorry, what? Fuck that guy, man.
times, do you think he should at least testify in the same way that Bill and Hillary Clinton did?
There are multiple people who have testified already in these depositions who have said that the president is not implicated in any kind of crime. And even today,
wouldn't you want to hear from the guy? Wouldn't you want to hear right from the horse's mouth?
I think the president has much bigger issues to deal with. And even today, President Bill Clinton said that he believes the president.
Bigger issues than being implicated in a pedophile ring?
We started the show talking about the Epstein files.
I think that's a pretty big...
I think it's interesting that we're now diverting away from the facts on local Democrats letting criminals out of prison who are then going and murdering people at bus stops and on the train on the way home. But I want to get to this.
I think it's a pretty big issue when you have the sitting president of the and frankly, if the president was a Democrat and he was implicated in the biggest sex trafficking ring in the United States, in the history of this country,
I think the word implicated is pretty strong, and I think
how would you know? But how would you know if he doesn't testify?
Because you can read read the documents, you can read the emails, and this isn't just about President Trump.
But we have 3 million documents that haven't been released.
Yes, you can. The Epstein thing is a distraction. From what's actually happening from this story that happened just today, where we have an illegal immigrant from West Africa.
You brought up the idea of a registered sex offender.
Yeah, registered convicted sex offender, not the president who was named in files with no evidence at all of criminal wrongdoing. Those are two very different things. But I want to get back to
I mean, again, let's just restate the premise here. We had an agreement that.
What?
In a pedophile ring? Located in the biggest. But we have 3 million of a sex.
Here, we had an agreement.
There we go.
That had put Iran over a year away from getting a nuclear weapon. We call it breakout time. The moment that they decide to get a nuclear weapon, to the moment that they can possess one, was over a year. Donald Trump ripped up that agreement, and then he just told the world this weekend that Iran is now a week away from getting a nuclear weapon. Now, whether that's true or not, that's Donald Trump's doing. He destroyed the agreement that had put them a year out from a nuclear weapon. And yes, he's got lots of warmongers around him. He's got a lot of folks who work in the defense industry who, see big profits in their eyes when they dream of a war against Iran. And he also, wants to keep the conversation away from Epstein. He seems allergic to working on the American economy. And so Venezuela occupied our political space for a little while. Now Iran occupies our political space, and folks aren't talking about the fact that there's an active cover-up to prevent the exposure of the president's connection to a child sex ring.
So, as we all know, Donald Trump has dragged us into yet a forever war. Well, lo and behold, Netanyahu's dream has finally come true. But the sad part is, for him at least, he's never going to get to see it come to fruition. He's been dreaming of a greater Israel.
Gotta have them ribs.
But the problem is Iran, among many other problems, Iran is taking out infrastructure that's damaging the world economy, and they're going to continue to do so. And so now gas prices all over the world are going to skyrocket, and the rest of the world is pointing the finger at the United States and Israel, rightfully so. Donald Trump got us into this war because, lo and behold, Epstein. But the silly thing is, we already know Donald Trump's all over the Epstein files. We already know what kind of man he is. This dude is mentioned over 1 million times in the Epstein files, and there's still
1 million
left to go that won't be released, or that the DOJ says that they're not going to release. But we don't want what else is there to see? What don't we know by now? We know the type of person that this man is. Yet and still, here we are. And so, if you recall, the Iraq war was only supposed to last for a few weeks. And then several decades later, there we were. Right? Well, 2 decades later, there we were. And it's going to be the same for this. Donald Trump, on the one hand, said, this is only going to last for a couple of days. Well,
only
actually,
a couple of days.
4 to 5 weeks. And then Pete Hegseth, you know what? We're not going to tell you our plans. We don't want to tip off the enemy. Why should we tell you what we're going to do? Maybe because we put y'all in office. Maybe because that's your job. So this whole thing is a disaster. And Lindsey Graham was on Fox News saying that Cuba's next. Okay, so I guess Cuba's next. I guess we're going to do a regime change in Cuba. We're just going to do a regime change for everybody all over the planet, and there's not going to be any consequences to be faced. But there are going to be consequences to be faced. We're already facing that. Donald Trump's approval rating is going to go to the floor. The only people that he's going to have left over the next few weeks, we still got 3 years left of this. Oh my God, we still have 3 years left. The only people he's going to have left are the cult-based followers who, no matter what he does, if he goes out on Fifth Avenue, they're going to be with him. And that's all he has left.
He's right.
Fox News alert, the NYPD says a suspicious device was found in a car near New York City's Mayor Zohran Mamdani's Manhattan home. This comes only a day after NYPD Commissioner Jessica
Let's see how they report
confirmed
this.
An explosive device was thrown outside of Gracie Mansion during a protest.
We were born and raised in New York, and we want everyone here to stay in New York. You don't get to come from outside and then tell everyone else.
Joining us now is former NYPD officer who served with the FBI Joint Terrorism Task Force, Tom Smith. Tom, thanks so much for joining the program. I guess the big question is, how does someone get these explosive materials?
And that's the important part of this. You're not walking into a store, especially an 18 and 19-year-old, and buying this. Where did they get this, and who taught them how to build this device? That's going to be the important part of this investigation going forward. And the JTTF is going to go into that with their backgrounds.
Yes,
their
AI.
inner circle, their travel, their finances. All of that's going to come into play when it comes to how did this begin and where are the origins of this.
I know we don't have a lot of information now, but what are the potential motivations of something like this?
He asked Grok.
It could be a bunch. It could be political. It could be religious. It could be an opportunity because of rhetoric that's going on. I mean, look at the statement that was mentioned by the mayor. Not really downplaying this.
Caused by rhetoric.
Or downplaying it and not coming out against it. So what you're doing is you're empowering these people.
Fuck you.
If they have an ally,
Fuck
this is going to continue to happen. And unfortunately, this might just be the beginning.
Let me read that statement because I think it's important in the context of this conversation.
Wait, was that what? That's Walter Masterson that he threw the bomb over? Oh, shit. Oh, shit. I didn't realize it was Walter.
This might just be the beginning.
Let me read that statement because I think it's important for the context of this conversation. This is what he said, the mayor, on X. Yesterday, white supremacist Jake Lang organized a protest outside of Gracie's mansion, rooted in bigotry and racism. Such hate has no place in New York City. What followed was even more disturbing. Violence at a protest is never acceptable. The attempt to use an explosive device and hurt others is not only criminal, it's reprehensible and the antithesis of who we are. I mean, to start a statement about that, when you have explosive devices, I mean, I just don't understand it as the mayor of the largest city.
No, I don't either. And it's disturbing because you're empowering them. You're giving them an ally in the might be beginning stages of these attacks. You have an improvised device. You have an explosive device being brought into New York City. That is a problem, and that should be at the forefront of any statement that he gives when regarding this action.
What is going on in counterterrorism, control rooms all over the country right now to keep Americans safe, not just in New York, but all major cities?
Yeah, what they're doing is they're communicating very tightly with our overseas partners and getting all the information that's from there into here. Threat streams, any threats into major cities, embassies, anything to do with this homeland. We're in contact with our allies over there who's going to feed us that information because that's where it's going to come from. And then what's going on domestically, all the joint terrorism task forces around this country are going to be on high alert to make sure nothing like this is happening. And if it is or it's being planned, to stop it beforehand.
But all the people that cross the border that we don't know where they came from, over 10 plus million people, could that be problematic?
That's a big problem. Just look at what's going on overseas now with Iran. We had about 2,000 Iranians stopped at the border. Over 750 got in. We don't know where they are, who they are, what any motivation they have in this country right now. So again, on top of now dealing with threat streams, you have to look for these people and see where they are and what they're doing in this country.
Roger that. Tom, thanks so much for joining the program.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
I'm Steve Doocy.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews.
That was actually insidious what they just did there. Holy shit. That was insidious, chat.
Right to jail, right away.
That's right. Are you kidding me? They took what Mamdani said, twisted his words, then talked to this fucking dude who, distracted back into Islamic terrorism bad. And we need to round up all Iranians because they might be a terrorist threat. Yeah, you know what that includes? When he's saying that? Chat, that includes the Iranian patriots that are cheering and clapping America attacking their country. They're going to round you up, too. How do you feel about that, Iranians? Iranian Americans that are clapping that your country's getting bombed by our stupidity. How do you feel now? Just curious. Just curious. Just curious, because it's like, yeah. What do you have a right to be over in America and clapping that your fucking country's getting clapped just because it has a fucking terrible regime? What? Sorry, if you think that's the solution, you got a problem.
Over the weekend, I think this was Saturday night, unclear if it was Israeli bombs or U.S. bombs. I mean, the Israeli bombs are U.S. bombs. It's unclear as to which was the apparatus in which this was fired. Largely irrelevant. Israel and the U.S. have done this war in concert at various times.
It is notable that the Americans are blaming the Israelis through Axios and Barak Ravid. What is old is new again. Welcome back, Joe Biden. There's all the leaks about how the Israelis made us do these horrible things seem to go to Axios' Barak Ravid.
Although we know that Donald Trump claims that he probably made Israel do it. Although he's also saying that, and we'll get to this in a moment, that the decision to end the war will probably be, both his and Netanyahu's, maybe a little bit more his, classic Trump. Nevertheless, they are
mostly
bombing
his decision.
Tehran. And as many people have said already, that to the extent that there are Iranians who are desperate to get rid of their regime, and I don't think it's a slam dunk in any shape or measure to say that it's half or more than half or, but there's certainly a significant portion of Iranians who want to be free from the theocracy. Most of them would be living in major cities like Tehran.
Yes.
As is, that is a dynamic that exists everywhere in the world. Urban centers tend to want to seek more liberalism in terms of their regime. And regardless of that fact, somehow American and U.S. forces, I guess, feel like the best way to encourage people to rise up against their government that they don't like is to make their lives horrible. And here is images from a U.S.-Israeli attack on oil deposits in around Tehran.
It looks like the apocalypse for the podcast audience. Plumes of black smoke and flames into the night sky.
The lung damage for millions of people.
And that's the short-term damage.
There are still images I've seen where literally like the oil congeals in the sky and drops down and on the ground there's like a thick like black film on things. Here is a CNN report from Tehran.
By the way, important that Western press is able to be on the ground. Just a lesson to the Washington Post that.
Yeah, what the fuck? What's up with that?
Destroyed its entire foreign reporting bureau. Like, this is why we need this kind of journalism. It's also why Israel's not letting the Western press into Gaza.
Yeah, or frankly, my understanding is they are also censoring their images of Tel Aviv being hit.
Yep.
So CNN is allowed to broadcast in Tehran and show ostensibly where fires are burning, where, providing, I guess, theoretically information to the Israelis and Americans as to like where their bombs landed. You cannot do the same. You're not allowed. There's not that level of freedom of press in Israel. But here's a CNN report from Iran.
This is what Tehran is waking up to this morning. The sky above the city is covered in very thick black clouds. You can see that everywhere. That's the west of the city over there, and this is the north of the city. Normally, if you look to that direction, you could actually see the Alborz Mountains, but now all of that is also covered in clouds. That comes after major airstrikes in the south and the west of the city happened last night, where oil installations were hit, oil storage facilities. Apparently also a refinery might have been hit as well. And now you can see this morning that the sky is still very dark. We saw thick black plumes of smoke in the sky yesterday. There were massive fires in the south of the city. But I want to show you something else, because it's also raining. But you can see that the rain water is actually black, also saturated, it appears, with oil. And then if we look over there, you can see that
you shouldn't be
water
breathing
that's
that.
running down here.
Oh my
also
God,
is,
dude.
Is black. So that's what's coming down this morning. This sort of oil-filled rain that we have right now on the Iranian capital after those strikes took place.
Absolutely insanity.
In the short term, it means, skin irritation, some chemical burns potentially. It's going to affect your lungs. Obviously, anybody that has respiratory issues, it's going to be a major problem. But in looking at, in Kuwait, the attacks on those oil fields, you can make assessments about long-term risks and long-term health risks. And this is going to increase the risk of cancer due to how carcinogenic it is, respiratory disease, long-term effects for the 10 million people that live in Tehran. It's going to be in the soil. It's going to be in the waterways. This is a massive chemical attack on one of the biggest
literally is. That's
cities
what it
in
is.
the world.
It's a double.
By our
it's a
terrorist
twofer.
government and the Israelis.
Oopsie.
And we're
It's like,
openly
yeah,
saying
oops.
that this is the objective. Like, it's not about getting the Iranian people to rise up, clearly. It's like a Christian nationalist in Pete Hegseth and Donald Trump, and people that want to sow chaos and see the Iranian people suffer and dismantle their state, create a failed state. I mean, I don't even think that their objective, Trump may have been sold that regime change is possible, but I think that the Israelis are just as happy if the state falls apart.
I agree. I think that they would love the idea of some type of like Balkanization there.
For sure.
As the Iranian people have freedom rain down upon them. And it turns out that freedom, when it rains down upon you, is full of acid and petroleum. And so that's where we're at. Now, oil is over $100 a barrel for the first time, I think, since like 2020, like
2022, when that, like, as soon as I think Russia invaded Ukraine, which caused that crisis.
And that one was, I think, more like in some ways more speculative. Like obviously this is speculative as well, but the 20% of Asia's oil comes from that region. I don't think that we get nearly as much of that oil at all. But this is to the huge benefit of Russia, of course. But also, this is going to have huge implications in terms of our economy down the road. It could even get, and this is sort of where we're at right now. Short of ending this war in the next couple of days, it's going to get dramatically worse. We also, and we mentioned this last week, key element of the world's fertilizer is produced in that region as well. It's a petroleum byproduct and nitrogen, and you could make it other places. It just so happens that it's mostly made there. So we're going to see food prices spike. The only potential saving grace, and we shall see, is that Donald Trump is an idiot. And it's quite possible that he was just convinced to do this by a bunch of Zionists and neocons. And without any pushback in the White House, because that's the way it works when you have only unqualified people around who are thankful to be there and don't want to engage in anything. You know, Pete Hegseth is just going to, whatever you say, Mr. President, and even the domestic people are going to be like, whatever you say, Mr. President, that's just their job. He may end up getting calls from some of his business friends, who knows who they are, saying, hey, wait, dude, this is really screwing everything up for everybody, including those in the Gulf states. And he may, having been told that this was just going to be easy peasy like Venezuela, realize like this is not going to be easy peasy like Venezuela. He may just declare victory and leave. And the prospect of that, I think we said this on Friday, and then later that day, the prospect of that went up. Here is, no, let's go to Carolyn Leavitt, because she would not say this if there wasn't talk already in the White House, like, maybe we just want to wrap this up.
What does the president mean when he calls for unconditional surrender? Is he saying that the regime has to fully relinquish control?
What the president means is that when he, as commander-in-chief of the U.S. Armed Forces, determines that Iran no longer poses a threat to the United States of America and the goals of Operation Epic Fury has been fully realized, then Iran will essentially be in a place of unconditional surrender. Whether they say it themselves or not, frankly, they don't have a lot of people to say that for them, because the United States and the state of Israel have completely wiped out more than 50 leaders of the former terrorist regime, including the supreme leader himself.
Okay, so that's like prepping. She's prepping.
The good news is Trump has the ability, according to Trump, the ability to issue a unilateral, unconditional surrender from Iran, which honestly, like, for those of us who don't want this to happen and want this to end as soon as possible, that is a good thing.
Can someone dust off the mission accomplished banner from the Pentagon warehouses and just show it to Trump and say, this means it's over?
Oh, we accomplished it? Okay, good. It's over. And here he
Operation APAC Fury. I mean, Epic Fury. I stole that from a Kyle Kalinske meme, but it's still, we should call it that. Operation APAC Fury going forward.
When did Trump issue this? Do we know?
Oh, that is good, actually.
Truth Social?
Yeah.
APAC Fury. Operation APAC Fury. That's right.
I believe it was Saturday. But
Okay, so Trump, I think on Saturday, issued this Truth Social. We'll get confirmation on when. Iran, which is being beat to hell, has apologized and surrendered to its Middle East neighbors. Now, at one point, there was, and I can't remember which Iranian official was, apologized to some of the neighboring countries, saying that we are only going to hit locations that support the United States. So in other words, we're just going to hit radar installations, which apparently they have, and weren't going to hit any civilian targets in the Gulf states that weren't associated with the U.S.-Israel attacks. Now, the U.S. has called in various countries for servicemen to leave bases and stay at civilian hotels, which, of course, is using human shields. So it's quite possible some hotels may be hit. But Trump says Iran, which is being beat to hell, has apologized and surrendered to its Middle East neighbors and promised it will not shoot at them anymore. This promise was only made because of the relentless U.S. and Israeli attacks. They're looking to take over and rule the Middle East. It is the first time that Iran has ever lost in thousands of years to surrounding Middle Eastern countries. They have said, thank you, President Trump. I have said, you're welcome.
That's so
Iran is
him.
no
You're
longer the, quote, bully of the Middle East.
Bully of the Middle
They are
East.
Instead, quote, the loser of the Middle East.
The loser of the Middle
end quote,
East.
and will be for many decades until they surrender or more likely completely collapse.
loser,
Today,
dude.
Iran will be hit very hard under serious consideration for complete destruction and certain death because of Iran's bad behavior. Our areas and groups of people that were not considered for targeting up until this moment in time. Thank you for your attention to this matter.
Well, like a girls' school?
Like little children and the millions and millions of people who will now face health implications from this
I don't
chemical
care
attack.
about
Well,
that.
told you. I mean, we told you.
Functions as a chemical
told
attack,
you.
let alone, by the
You
way, what
shoulda
they're
given
doing in
up.
Lebanon, where they're, it seems like they're
Yeah.
resuming the use of white phosphorus, the Israelis.
Yes.
We love the white phosphorus.
And so
it's the best.
The potential out for this, and it seems to me that we are probably there's a rather small window for Trump to basically say, let's get out. We won. We're done bombing them because we were so successful. We can't get any more successful. There would be too much success. And ends
It'll be
this,
too much
which
winning.
would obviously be a good thing. He's on the record as saying that he would consider ending the campaign in consultation
China.
with Netanyahu, but probably more me than Netanyahu, which of course means probably more Netanyahu. But
Right, like you get the like Netanyahu gives you the figurative Nobel Peace Prize. You're the guy in charge.
Yeah. But this is important because if we go further than this,
Yes, he's right. This is the
it
point.
seems to me there must be a time over the next week
shit.
or two, as things escalate, that there is no sort of turning back. That Iran at one point will have an incentive
To,
to
like,
make
do
this
some
as
serious
painful
damage.
as possible.
He's right.
For everyone in the region,
Yep.
because they don't want this to happen again. Now, the day that we end the attack, Iran is going to start to actually, for the first time, I would imagine, actively pursue the building of a nuclear weapon.
The son of Khomeini, who is said to be more of a hardliner on that issue, and
It would be complete malpractice
not to
by a government at this point to not build
respond
a nuclear weapon
and
as
get
a
one.
deterrent for this happening again. And the only other
Exactly.
deterrence they can possibly have is to say at one point when it becomes too expensive for whatever, when the cost becomes too large for Donald Trump to continue to do it, so that, as if like a tiger swatting at a bee's nest, those hornets will bite and bite and bite and bite, make sure that doesn't happen again.
True.
I just want to make one more point about this Truth Social reading between the lines here, because you see how he tries to rope in the Middle Eastern. Can you just put it up briefly for a second? You see how he keeps repeatedly bringing up the fact that they're going to take over and rule the Middle East? By the way, this is what the Israelis say they want to do with the Greater Israel theory, a bipartisan desire to take over the Middle East. So look at that projection there. And I was reading something over the weekend. I really forget who it's from, so apologies for not citing it. But that there's this emphasis by Israel and the United States to try to rope in the Middle Eastern countries into at least their propaganda effort to say that they're a united front against Iran here. Because I think that there's a lot of anxiety and squeamishness, rightly so, about this relationship with the United States. We know that the Saudis and the Iranians, a few years ago, there was talks that were brokered by the Chinese. They're warming up their relationship to China. This is Trump trying to brute force bring in the rest of the Gulf states into their kind of axis of violence, at least rhetorically. And I don't think it's going to actually have the desired impact, because I think that they're just going to think like maybe we should be diversifying our relationships outside of the U.S. and the West.
Hey, folks, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and check out our daily show.
And why
we
wouldn't
do it
you?
every day.
And why wouldn't you, chat? Right? Why wouldn't you? Hello? Can I move something, please? We have a lot of videos today. We got 4 more, but they're long. Okay, here we go.
All right, according to Jamie Raskin, Donald Trump is in the Epstein files over 1 million times. Also not talked about enough is that Benjamin Netanyahu is mentioned in the Epstein files about 6,000 times. And so
of course he is.
The Epstein files were just mushrooming mushroom clouding, really. Benjamin Netanyahu had to wag the dog and say the real mushroom cloud here are the
She's right.
non-existent nukes that
Listen
Iran
to
has. Benjamin Netanyahu
listen to
has
Mama
been
here.
compulsively lying for 40 years. We have it all on tape. You've seen the video. You've seen the hypercut. 40 years that Iran is going to have nukes. They don't have them. And so both of these men that are intimately
it doesn't matter.
listed in these Epstein
I say they
files
deserve to have them, definitely
needed
now.
a distraction. Benjamin
They need to
Netanyahu
have
needed
them.
a Make-A-Wish favor from
I agree
Donald
with
Trump
Uncle
with an
Sam.
assist from Miriam Adelson, who loves Israel more than she loves the United States. Let's go bomb Iran, because no other president was stupid enough or compromised enough like Donald Trump is to do it. And it turns out right before all of this, there are credible accusations that the president of the United States assaulted a 13-year-old girl, sexually assaulted. And these allegations have legs and credibility to them. Pop this up. Julie K. Brown, who everybody knows is the main journalist on this story and has been from the get-go.
Right away.
Using archived government records and new accounts, the Post and Courier found that the woman provided verifiable details to agents about her family background and its legal entanglements. She offered the name of an Epstein business associate on Hilton Head Island who became a central figure in the drama, with specifics that are reflected in public records. So this isn't just some crazy allegation. These allegations have legs. And this is the allegation, you guys, where, and it's graphic, and I'm going to warn you before I go into it, but the allegations are that Trump
disgusting.
Unzipped his pants and told the girl to perform oral sex on him, and she bit him, and then he hit her. And these allegations were credibly given, and the FBI deemed them to be so credible that they had multiple follow-up interviews, and now there's corroborating evidence.
Here's the thing. Why on earth would anybody, even MAGA, based on Donald Trump's public comments, public behavior, and his history with women, even have a doubt that these allegations are credible? What Donald Trump does, we even heard his first wife talk about.
You can't have the wall that close behind you, okay?
There is no world in which anyone can discount these allegations and say, well, they're not credible. Just look at Donald Trump's own words and behavior. It's insanity to be putting up a defense for this man, because he has made it crystal clear. This is
anyone
how
who defends him at this point is indefensible.
Any question. I'm linking it more so here to the fact
You're
that this was really starting to boil over. And the cover up of this is really starting to get a lot of legs. There's no question. I think we all realize that quote unquote suicide of Jeffrey Epstein was actually not that. And these files and the active dismantling of these files online right now and during the Iranian war, I think what we're realizing here is this war is two-pronged. Number one, Benjamin Netanyahu's Make-A-Wish always wanted to attack Iran. Donald Trump compromised. I do not think it's hyperbolic, nor do I think it's that big of a conspiracy theory at all, to make the following conclusion.
Okay, Humpty.
Israel is knee-deep in all of the Epstein files. Jeffrey Epstein, a lot of people who have studied them believe that he was a Mossad agent who was getting compromising information. And here's where it gets a little bit sticky.
Of course.
The Western media will cover this as Trump was, Epstein was in contact with Vladimir Putin, which was true. And Trump is compromised by Vladimir Putin, which is probably true. But they really either omit or wash out any sort of mention of Israel. And the fact of the matter is, Jeffrey Epstein, the former prime minister, they were massively entangled into all of this. And I don't think it's that big of a jump to say that the Israeli government has compromising video of Trump. Now, this is just my opinion, but I don't think that's hyperbolic, nor do I think that is conspiratorial. I think as we see all of these things converge, it's abundantly
Why
obvious
would a man do that much for
happened.
another man like that?
So The next headline here is
there's no other reason.
Why are
they're both
the
compromised?
base? Why is the base supporting this? Why has the base always supported Trump? Well, because they're religious fanatics. White evangelical Christians delivered the presidency for Trump. People like to talk about Latinos for Trump or blacks for Trump. Those numbers were not significant enough. White people, specifically white Christian nationalist evangelicals, delivered Trump 2 terms. All right. Well, these evangelicals are what are called Christian Zionists. They are rapture preppers. So they're able to be pitched this idea of the Iranian war because they believe that it will signal the return of Jesus Christ in the rapture. This is a guiding factor in foreign policy. And here's what's so diabolical about Benjamin Netanyahu. He knows this. He knows that the most co-opted, easiest, dumbest, most manipulatable voting bloc in the world are right-wing American Christian evangelicals. These people do not think. They are told what to believe, period. Pop this up. The Guardian is reporting a very dangerous person. This is about Pete Hegseth. And they go on to say, alarm as Pete Hegseth revels in the carnage of Iran war. And the poster, Muin Rabani, says, Christian Zionism, a death cult, now as powerful as it is bloodthirsty, led by raptured junkies on a mission to hasten the end of the world. And I have said this for a year now. MAGA is a death cult. All of their policies, all of their actions lead to death. But they're so broken, these people. They're not right with God because they're broken. They have no skills. No, these are emotionally stunted toddlers that present as grown adults. And they think, oh, if we do all of these things, if we commit all these war crimes, then we'll be right with God. Because as we know, Pete Hegseth has 95 baby mamas, which I don't give a shit about.
Yeah, who
but
cares?
The evangelical movement does. Yeah. They're all about these traditional family values. So you have this strange bedfellow of the government of Israel that wants to expand. And they need people to help them do this, mainly American taxpayer money. And so then you have to get a portion of the American public on board with this. It just so happens the same idiots that elected Trump are the same idiots that are all chips in on this war to fund it because they actually think they're going to be raptured.
Well, here's the deal. They've been indoctrinated that they're going to be raptured and God is coming from at least 50 years, because I remember it in my lifetime.
Same.
But what's so alarming
I remember talking about
all of
to
this
young kids about this.
Is
that were
these people
were
that
Christians.
say we're God and country and we're, family values and all that. They have turned to, in every turn, they have gone away from everything they claim to be. The hypocrisy of voting for a convicted felon, a serial adulterer, the way they've talked about kids. They protect pedophiles. I mean, in my experience, evangelical Christians are quick to forgive pedophilia because it happens so frequently within their movement. And then you have someone with no experience who is willing to violate international law, commit crimes, and murder people.
Like the whole reason he came into office, don't forget, Trump, was to escape jail.
Also jail.
Like he knew that he could get into office, install the right people into office, into the right places like the FBI, so he couldn't get prosecuted, right? Etc. And on and on.
Well, willy-nilly.
Right? I mean, I'm not wrong about that. I know I'm not.
Because in
one of his main motivations,
Jesus is coming back and he doesn't have to worry about it. And that, to me, those are the scariest people that think that
I'm not going to heaven now.
That there's no accountability that's ever going to occur because
I don't think I'm going to make it to heaven
and lift them up to heaven. And Pete Hegseth falls in that category, and he is the Secretary of Defense.
Okay, and then moving along here, so the MAGA movement is going through some things right now, but I want to be crystal clear, you guys. You have some podcasters and right-wing influencers where you see fissures. Poll after poll after poll shows that Trump's base is in lockstep with him. They always have been. They always will be. These people deliver for this man. They're delivering for Benjamin Netanyahu right now. Any support that Trump has for this war, it's like 85% Republican base support. So any mention that it's falling apart, there are little factions that do. But all in all, these people stick together. And this is an interesting development, what we have here. So you have the Texas Senate race on the Republican side. And this right-wing media gal named Emerald something accuses John Cornyn of sexual harassment payouts to a man. Pop this up. Emerald Robinson, and you can see she has her Christian cross there, Christian signaling. Just got a call from a Senate staffer. GOP leadership can't allow the disclosure of sex harassment settlements right now. The reason? It would harm John Cornyn. I'm told that particular settlement was paid to another man. And I talk about this all the fucking time. This movement and these people believe in nothing. Allegedly here, John Cornyn, who is rabidly anti-gay during the day, clearly has a different preference at night. And these Christians, evangelical Christians that go to vote for Trump,
interesting
like,
losers.
Jesus and forgiveness.
They're all losers.
Yet their vote is the exact opposite.
Unlike you guys, chat,
Everything.
hit the follow button.
This is
Love
the
you.
party that believes in nothing. These people believe in nothing. They have no
She's right.
conviction
Listen
whatsoever.
to Auntie.
If Trump were to wake up tomorrow morning and say the Iran war was a mistake, I don't want to be a neocon. Fuck Benjamin Netanyahu. I'm pulling out. They would all go, oh my God, he's genius. I mean, this is a level of 975-degree chess that I've ever seen in my entire life.
Right.
They believe in nothing. These are the people that have gay children that go and vote against their kids. These are the people that consume Black culture for entertainment and harbor racism morning, noon, and night and feast on it, appetizer, entree, and dessert. These people believe in fucking nothing. So do I believe that John Cornyn is a DL queen? Probably. All of these people are so sexually stunted, and because their number one goal that evangelicals raise their kids to do is to be virgins.
Exactly.
Like out of all the things in the world, it's not be a good person.
Right? Be a
it's
virgin.
not help sick people.
It's the number one thing.
It's not help poor people. It's this purity culture, waste of time bullshit. They don't teach them about consent. They don't teach them about acceptance.
Speak, sister.
They don't teach them about, some people are born this way. Hell, Mike Johnson, you guys, believes that homosexuality is a choice. He talks about it all the time, which is such a self-own, because he's basically admitting that he's choosing
to not be gay.
Heterosexual. One of his quotes, and I'm paraphrasing here, is you can't control what color of eyes you have. You can't control what color hair you have or what your skin color is, but you can control your sexuality. And I'm like, that's really interesting, little grinder, because I didn't choose to be
little
straight.
grinder.
That is just not a choice that I made. I just am. I just am a heterosexual woman.
Exactly.
And so this
what the fuck
is so revealing and so unsurprising to me that so many in this MAGA movement, so many of these men fetishize at night what they browbeat and try to destroy during their day jobs. And it is just a microcosm of the hypocrisy of this white, racist, bloodthirsty death cult that is white evangelical megachurch culture.
When you look around in the House and the Senate of all the people that browbeat against gay marriage and how bad gays are and that lifestyle you choose and all the things they say about it, they're the ones normal people that just aren't thinking about sex all the time and just living their lives are not talking about sex and who's having sex with whom all of the time. And I will just say this, from growing up in an evangelical Christian church, there is no doubt in my mind that there are so many men, because of their religious shame, that feel like they cannot come out. And so they punish everybody else for how much they are miserable. And you see this over and over again. And here's the thing. I do not care. I don't give a shit. But you have the Republican Party that continues to protect pedophiles, hurt people in the LGBTQIA plus community because they themselves hate themselves. Over and over, they demean women. They want only power for them, and they want to demean and be hypocrites, and they're willing to do it to such a degree they don't care if people die over it. They're going to go to war.
They don't care about that.
To protect liars and cheaters.
Oh, and they make it
and
more.
I'm like, where is the normal person that's sitting in a church pew that says, we're not doing this? We don't care. We're not willing to send American troops to die so that you don't have to look at the Epstein files, so that Lindsey Graham can go have sex with whoever he wants. Like, is that day ever going to come? I'm not seeing it yet, but with the rise.
I want to say, where we live in Oklahoma, yes, the people in those churches are vehemently anti-gay and pro-pedophilia president. Every church I walk past in New York City has a pride flag, a trans flag, and says refugees and immigrants welcome here. This is the Bible Belt white Christian evangelical vote that delivered this. These are the churches you grew up in. These are the churches you sent your kids to. This is the anti-gay purity culture. There is a faith out there, and I know that a lot of our listeners have this, where it's like the bishop that lectured the Trumps.
Right.
An inauguration that spoke about, not further marginalizing trans people and welcoming refugees and being anti-war. Even the Pope is trolling J.D. Vance and Trump all of the time. So those people exist, but because we live in a fascist, propagandistic society right now, the voices that we hear all the time are these rapture preppers because they're holding power. But
she's right.
I believe, and everybody knows how I feel about religion, I fucking hate it, all of them. I'm a lifelong atheist, but I do know,
I'm with her,
with everything in me, that there are really good people of faith, Christian faith, Muslim faith,
that's the thing,
Jewish faith, that believe in universal human rights and that believe that there's a beautiful light out in the world somehow that connects us all together in a shared sense of humanity. And I know that to be true. And each of those Abrahamic religions that I mentioned have horrific, awful extremists in them. But there are people who are calling out the war crimes, the homophobia, the hypocrisy. It's just when you're in the midst of a fascist regime, the regime's propaganda, which is owned by all of the oligarchs, seems so much bigger than what it really is. I believe with everything in me, there are more people that see the light and that see the goodness in our shared humanity than these people. And Pumps and I have been around these people. They're fucking awful. As awful as you think they are, they're worse. But I do believe that there are really good people out there of faith. And I have to remind myself of that because I'm so quick to just jump on the religion bashing.
No, you're exactly right. My experience was in the evangelical Christian church, and they are judgmental and they are hateful, and hypocrisy reigns.
Totally. There's just no question. And Trump has made them worse, Pumps. They're worse.
A million times worse.
I just feel like he has made that sect of Christianity worse. And I just want to say one thing. A lot of people in the comment section will say they're not real Christians. That is a very dangerous argument to make. And let me tell you why.
Shut up or shut up.
MAGA always makes the argument, like if you're not MAGA, you're not a real American. Well, that's patently false. Pumps and I are real Americans. I was born in Dallas, Texas. She was born in Oklahoma. It doesn't get any more, quote, heritage American than that, right? Those are their words. I don't believe in any of that bullshit. I think I think Zoran Mamdani is every bit as American as I am, even though
Thank you, ma'am.
He migrated here when he was 3 years old.
Warble Beagle, thanks for the follow.
These people are Christians, and they get their ideas from the same book that the good ones get their ideas from. And that's why it's important to not just dismiss it outright as they're not real Christians. It is a problem within Christianity, right? That needs to be fixed within the movement, because they use the exact same book. The homicidal, genocidal judgment that they get is the Old Testament God. I mean, I've read it. It's not good. It's not stuff. Now, of course, then there's Jesus that comes, but they are real Christians. They believe they're real Christians. They would pass a polygraph filled with truth serum that they are real Christians. So it's important that you talk about this sect of Christianity, but you can't take away their Christianity from them, because they are Christians. Maybe they're not your version of Christians, but they are fucking Christians.
Yeah,
just like I'm not MAGA's version of an American, but by God, I am a fucking American. Sometimes I'm not really happy about it, but that's what I am. And that's why I stay, and we do this. And we want to help be a huge opposition party and a resistance to these extremists, these cultists. All right. Anyway, that's all we have for this episode. Like, subscribe, comment, and we'll be back later with more news.
Wow. They're good. The best.
So one of the things I feel embarrassed about on a regular basis is that I ever liked Bill Maher.
Same. I agree. But there wasn't much around. Don't kick yourself, Kyle. It's okay. I was there with you, watching him.
There was a time where I thought he was interesting. I thought he made fascinating points, and I enjoyed him as a
He kind of did,
personality.
depending on the sense.
Even going back to the politically incorrect days when he had that show on ABC, but the early days of Real Time, he was one of the people who voted for Bernie.
He's
in
just admitting he's a lib,
which of course that gets you a lot of sway with the left, where people look.
That's
at you
when
like,
I started
okay, you're one of
watching
us,
him.
right?
Yeah.
But then as time has gone
Bernie.
by, man, he is so washed. I've never seen.
Thank you.
I mean, he is Celtic Shaq and then some, bro.
Yes,
He's
is.
like if current
Thank
day
you,
Shaq
brother.
Tried to play in the NBA.
I know,
Okay,
right?
like he had to retire a long ass time ago because now it's just untenable with how cooked his political takes are. So he went from supporting Bernie Sanders in 2016 to Amy Klobuchar in 2020, the only Bernie to Klobuchar voter in fucking history. And then today, he's gone full enlightened centrist, and he tries to spend half of his time sucking off MAGA and Republicans, and the other half the time being like a snotty elitist liberal, okay? Just like the most god-awful mix of politics you've ever seen in your life. And just shockingly wrong about so much shit and arrogantly wrong about it, right? So here we are, and he is going to explain here how he kind of supports Trump's illegal and offensive war on Iran. He supports the axis of Epstein in their illegal and offensive war. And I believe he recorded, this was after the U.S. had bombed in elementary school, killing like 175 people, most of them children. This is what he said.
I just want to reiterate what I said in the monologue. I'm cautiously optimistic unless he puts boots on the ground. Then he's going to lose me. We'll see for now. I just don't get what liberals
boots on the
get
ground
about
is
liberation.
Well, what they don't get is that it's not fucking liberation. So it's really what you don't get. The fact that you see this as liberation is a you problem, okay? You think Donald J. Trump and Benjamin Netanyahu are doing liberation? The person who just stole Venezuela's oil and put the money in a private bank account in Qatar, that guy's liberating people? Netanyahu, who just did a genocide in Gaza, he's liberating people? That's what they're doing? I mean, how naive do you have to be? How stupid do you have to be to think that's the case for even a second? Oh, my God, bro.
He's going to lose me. We'll see for now. I just don't get what liberals don't get about liberation. I see so much happiness. I see it in Venezuela. I see it here in Iran. Could we skip the part where we talk about, they had so many different reasons for going to war, regime change, and we got to get rid of the nukes, and they were supporters of terrorism. It's all of it. How about this?
What?
This was a fascist theocracy, and nothing in the Middle East was ever going to get better while they were still there fucking everything up.
That's a great point.
And
If you're talking about Israel.
Yeah.
They're a fascist theocracy, and they're at the center of every problem in the Middle East.
Agree.
Exactly right about Israel. The people that just did a genocide, the people that right now are doing pogroms in the West Bank to try to steal the West Bank, the people that right now are stealing all of South Lebanon as we speak, and they already displaced 517,000 people within the past 3 days. They are the problem. They are the problem. They are a settler colonialist project. They are expansionist, okay? They're trying to create a greater Israel and steal the entire Middle East and kill anybody and everybody who gets in the motherfucking way. That's what they're doing. And here he is saying Iran is the heart of the problem. My ass cheeks, Iran. They always say, the #1 state sponsor of terrorism. Really? The majority of the hijackers on 9/11 came from Saudi Arabia. The Salafist Wahhabi jihadist ideology comes out of Saudi Arabia. Israel and the USA do way more terrorism than they do.
Yes, sir.
But I know when we do it, it doesn't count magically. When we bomb an elementary school, and when we bomb double-digit numbers of hospitals and schools in Iran within the first week of the war, that somehow doesn't count as terrorism. Because, we're the good guys and stuff. So, like, since we're the good guys and we've defined ourselves as the good guys, we get to bomb schools, and it doesn't count as bad because...
At least Kyle knows
Iranian
how this
Revolutionary
works.
Guard schools or something, right? Just embarrassingly pathetic. So, I'm cautiously optimistic. This take is going to age so far. It's already aged horribly. It's aged like fucking milk in the sun, bitch. It's already aged like that. But that's what he said. And then in his intro, he talks about how, like, Trump came after me in the midst of tweeting about the war. That was so crazy. He tweeted about me like 8 times. And so you would think in that moment, if anything, you would see this more clearly. Like, the guy's clearly unhinged. The guy clearly, his brain is not working. It's like clearly misfiring, and he does stupid things, believes stupid things.
Yes,
and
sir.
here you are saying, yes, that guy who has no soundness of mind whatsoever and who's totally lost it, I support him doing an illegal and offensive war against a country that didn't attack us.
I know, right?
Like, think about that, Bill, for one fucking second. But the fact of the matter is, Bill Maher is a massive Zionist, and that's why he likes this. He's a massive Zionist.
You
He
clocked
loves
him.
Benjamin Netanyahu, and that's why he's acting like this, okay? But he's not done yet. So somehow this gets even more pathetic on top of just supporting Trump's illegal war here and Netanyahu's illegal war, the axis of Epstein and their illegal war. Here he is. He's going to, like, desperately plead with Trump. Please, sir. No, I promise, I don't have Trump derangement syndrome. I actually give you a lot of credit. Sometimes I actually like you. So stop saying I have Trump derangement syndrome. Oh, my God, bro, that's so embarrassing. Oh, my God, that's so embarrassing. Mr. Adolf, Mr. Hitler, I swear I'm not really that. I'm very nuanced when it comes to analyzing your record. I actually like the highways that you built, sir. Like, why don't you see that I'm actually very reasonable? Oh, my God, bro, what the fuck?
Finally, Noodle, someone has to help Donald Trump understand that I don't suffer from Trump derangement syndrome. He
embarrassing.
Suffers from Bill Maher derangement syndrome.
Fuck it. Who the fuck is even going to watch Bill Maher these days? Who is clapping like seals in the fucking audience? By the way, I've been there before. They make you clap. They say, when that sign says clap, clap. Like, they try to make you laugh. They try to make you clap. Like, that's how embarrassing this is. It's that forced.
3 weeks ago, I woke up to some things the president had written on his Truth social media platform that somehow were not true. I don't know how they got in there. It's not like the president to just make things up when he's mad.
Why is it backwards, Kyle, and
that's
upside
the guy
down?
who I support waging an illegal and offensive war against a country that didn't attack us.
But on this occasion, he did, which I forgive. But on Valentine's Day, that hurt. But just to set the record straight from what the president claimed, I didn't ask for the dinner. Our mutual friend asked me. It's on tape from my podcast. Also, I wasn't nervous and scared, and the dinner wasn't quick. I was there almost 3 hours, and it wasn't vodka, it was a margarita. I didn't ask for it right away. I had a drink before dinner, and then a couple more during. I was having a good time. So were you, Don, because we were talking like real humans, not like that crazy act you put on in public. But I know that's what you do.
I know the real you. The real you is actually much better than
Yeah.
that. Why aren't you acting normal in public?
Stop.
Why can't you just be the same person in public that you are in private? You were so lovely and polite in private. Why do you have to be so mean in public? Oh my
Exactly.
God, bro. Who likes this?
3275.
Who likes this?
Good number.
Like unbelievable.
Gotta change, though.
Who is this for?
You are, if anything,
I know,
a man
right?
who wears his heart on his sleeve. And so
Like,
you
who
did
is
here,
he talking
listing
to
your
now?
accomplishments and how
The
hurt
Never
you feel that
Trumpers?
people, including me, have not recognized them enough. I understand that feeling. You texted me soon after the dinner complaining I was still part of the lunatic left. And how you should have won a Nobel Prize for ending wars. And I texted back, yeah, and I should have won 20 Emmys.
Oh my God.
And Don Lemon
He's
is
one of those
fucking
people,
sure.
just like Trump, that like he's just so sad that he's not welcomed into the cool kids club. Bill Maher is the type of person to be upset that he wasn't invited to Epstein Island. That's what he is. That's what this is. I thought I was in with the cool kids crowd in Hollywood, and it turns out they only nominate me for Grammys, and I never actually won the Grammys or the Emmys or whatever the fuck they're called. I don't even know the difference between the award shows, but you get the point, right? Like, I'm still really upset that I've been nominated since like 1999 and I haven't got one, and that's because they're too woke, and it's rigged, and I don't like it. You're just like
Shut
Trump.
up or shut up.
Like, bro, I'm sorry, nobody cares about your petty little gripes. Are you kidding me? There's nothing sadder than somebody who's pretends to be an outsider, but secretly they want to be in the club, right? Like, I'm an outsider, and I want to be an outsider. I don't want to be a part of the club at all. I want to fucking lob metaphorical bombs at the club all day, every day. He pretends like he hates the club, but he's just mad he's not in the club. Oh, my God.
Correct.
We argued for a while, and you ended by saying, Bill, you know what? Don't change. I wouldn't know what to do with you if
Entire
you did.
puzzle.
Okay, that's the normal human
Thanks
being.
for the follow. Like I
saw
said,
the
it's
night
got to
we broke bread, and
change.
As long as I think there's even a spark of a possibility to bring that guy out more, I will not consider the dinner a waste of time, even as I now see.
No, the reason why you don't see it as a waste of time is because you're a fucking insane narcissist, and you will justify and rationalize literally any fucking thing you say or do. Any diarrhea, fucking brain fart ass argument you make, you will stand on it 10 toes down because you're an arrogant, smug fuck. It's got nothing to do with like, I still see a ray of good in you, and that's why. Like, are you kidding me? He's fucking modern day Hitler. Who are we kidding? Netanyahu and Trump are modern day Hitlers.
We're back to name calling, and then I have some new ones like highly overrated lightweight to add to the list you signed. Thank you. I'll be by with a new one. But
highly overrated lightweight.
You're butthurt about people not having
Bill Maher.
Some people do have TDS. But you know what? I've called people
He
out
has
for making hating you
TDS.
their entire reason to live.
Oh my God, bro.
He's like,
no, Bill, those people
I called them
correct.
out. Why
Those
aren't you on
people
my
are
side?
Poignant and prescient. Those people are accurate.
Oh, he's
those people are the
disgusting,
real
dude.
ones. You're the fucking pathetic loser.
Stop making him your whole personality. But Don, you have to take some responsibility for that because you make people crazy. Because you... Because you do things that are racist, misogynistic, anti-democratic, and
Also,
corrupt.
yeah.
But I'll prove now I don't have the dreaded TDS. First off, despite all the hate I got from my side, I never threw you under the bus and said, oh, you're right, I shouldn't have ate steak with Hitler.
This is what I like to call the cult of fake nuance. Piers Morgan does this a lot too, where you like imply there's
He's
so
right.
much nuance in this thing, and you're just not being fair-minded by seeing
You
the
need to see the
upsides and the
nuance.
downsides. And it's
He's
like,
right.
no, you are splitting the difference where it doesn't fucking matter. Okay, this is like nuanced trolling, is what it is. It's like yeah, like I said, you could say, oh, Hitler built some nice highways, but like. That's not the point. That's not the point. You can't just overlook illegal and offensive wars of aggression. You can't overlook.
Well, my health care was
bombing,
down, so
double-digit schools and hospitals. You can't overlook
gas
that.
prices
But
were
they
only
do.
$5 a gallon.
Access to the President of the United States? Are you kidding? You can't put a price on that.
You absolutely can. There's a 0% chance that this guy would have accepted George W. Bush invitation in the year 2006.
Exactly.
0% chance. And now here he is acting like, oh, no, I totally would have.
Although, Don, quite frankly, you do put a price on that all the time. I consider myself lucky I got in to talk to you without giving you a 747 or buying you a cryptocurrency or giving you my Nobel Prize. But let's continue. You say no mention of the perfect border. The border is closed.
The border's a win.
The border's a win. You mentioned the mass removal of stone-cold criminals. This is what got Trump elected. We're going to get the gangs out. We don't want to become the kidnap country. They're taking out of Iran's nuclear capability. I was very supportive of bombing the nuclear facility in Iran.
I can't believe he thinks this is a flex, bro. You're just showing how pathetic you are and how
What
much
is
you
he
cuck yourself
doing?
to MAGA.
He's
That's what you're
literally
doing. Like, that's all this
cucking
is.
himself right
You're
now.
just bragging about being a beta.
Good job,
You're bragging
beta.
about Trump alphaing you into supporting the dumbest shit possible.
Yep.
But that was great. Venezuela. Do I love everything about it? No. But do I hate it? No. If he's
Oh my God,
Do I
bro.
love everything about it, but do I
he's
hate
such
it?
a piece
No,
of
it's
shit.
good.
This is the guy who, by the way, back in the day on
good,
Politically
bro.
Incorrect, he said the Vietnam War was necessary because we needed to show the world that we're willing to do a war over nothing and like kill millions of people. I should have known then that
I
I
know,
never
he's
should have
right.
been a fan of this guy,
He's right,
no matter what
actually.
happened from there. Because
Yes,
obviously
Kyle.
He's depraved.
He somehow gets Venezuela,
I didn't know he
Cuba,
said
and
that,
Iran
actually.
all to be not these horrible places they were.
I never
He should
heard
get a
him say
Nobel Peace
that.
Prize.
I know, that's good.
Oh,
That's
the
good,
smuggest
Kyle.
man on earth
Oh
is
my
also
God.
the most wrong man on earth.
Oh my God.
Oh God, I hate him so much. He's actually. Thank you for putting this all together, so you know. So I'm reminded about how much I hate you and how I should
Exactly.
never
I
cut
just
you
need to
slack on
watch
anything
this-
ever again.
Watch
The
that
return
one
of the
video.
hostages and the peace deal in the Middle East, where the liberal
There was
panel-
no peace deal.
What
It
peace
was a
deal?
lie. Oh my God, bro. What on earth is going on? I can't with this.
was praising you. A lot of people tried to pull this off. He did.
Give him credit. If he's good at getting deals done overseas, give him credit for it.
And here's a few you didn't even.
You're all such fucking suckers.
Losers!
The Golden Dome missile shield. Just because Trump thought of it, I'm not against it.
You should be, because it's fake. It's a massive
Right?
slush fund for fucking Raytheon and Boeing
Exactly.
and KBR and
They're not
Halliburton and
making- they're
whoever the
making
fuck.
vaporware.
Like, that's all it is. It's
They're
a
making
massive giveaway to the
vaporware.
military-industrial complex where it's not even going to fucking work. Just like the Iron Dome in Israel fucking failed as
Vaporware.
soon as real missiles started to get through that bitch, and it wasn't
Exactly.
Hamas bottle rockets.
Exactly.
Okay? It was nothing but a giveaway to his donors, his defense contractor donors,
Yep.
and you're too fucking stupid to realize it because you're a sucker.
He said, look, NATO hasn't been paying their fair share. I'm going to make them do that. He wasn't wrong about that. Israel, moving Israel's embassy to Jerusalem, loved it.
We might have to give Bill Maher the Cuck of the Year award. This
is
might be the Cuck of
self-cuck.
the Decade award.
This is
bro.
the self-cuck
This
of the
is like,
decade.
oh my God, I've never seen
This is
anything
worse-
this sad.
This
It's
is
literally
worse than
like
a Kamala
Trump
tries to run
alpha-mailed
again.
Bill Maher, and so now this is him like crawling back, being like, excuse me, sir, you got some of the technical facts wrong. I actually
technically,
am kind of giving you a lot of credit a lot of the time.
I'm a Reddit
And if
nerd,
you don't
yeah.
realize that, well, that's like a you problem, sir. So
you know, my
please,
time's
let
valuable.
me back in the
Hello?
club. I'd like to have dinner with you again.
Animals and marijuana. He did an animal rights thing, and all my PETA friends love. Pot is not a Schedule 1 anymore. Thank you. Penises. Penises do not belong in women's prisons. He's not wrong about that. And not just penises. Ballroom. We don't have a place when they have state dinners. They're doing it in a tent. This is America.
He literally doesn't even see that the Epstein Memorial Ballroom is a fucking massive scam. He literally doesn't even see that. That it's billionaires who are giving him the money for it, and it's pay-to-play corruption, and he returns the favor for them, and none of this was fucking approved, and it's all illegal. Oh my God,
There's
dog.
no permits.
So do I give a shit that he's doing this to the White House? I really don't. And giving props for saying about the Nick Fuentes Jew-hating wing of the Republican Party. Trump is the one who said, and I give him credit for this, he said, we don't want you. And the economy? About a month ago, I said, look, I had to own it. I said, I thought by July 4th the economy would be in the shitter, and it wasn't. I was wrong. See, that's the difference between you and me, Don. I can admit when I'm wrong.
Bill Maher released this, and literally, 2-3 days later, the economy imploded. Oh my God.
Oh my God,
I give up,
dude.
man. I
The
can't even
gas-
listen to the rest of this.
What
This is
the
not,
fuck? I know.
I can't even listen to the rest of this. We got through, 70% of it? 75% of it? I can't do it. I can't do
Yeah.
it. Bill Maher, you are an embarrassment. You are a joke. You are pathetic. You are a loser. You are a fucking dinosaur relic from a previous age that is
Yeah.
nuanced trolling your whole audience. I literally
Thank you,
don't know who this
Kyle.
is for.
Who is he
Liberals
talking
are gonna
to?
fucking hate this. Conservatives are gonna fucking hate this.
Who?
Who's your audience? Who's
MAGA?
your audience? Like 7 Gen X weirdos who are on Wall Street or something?
Yeah, what
who
the
feel the
fuck?
same way about Trump that you do? Like,
They're
I
like
kind of
all
like him, but I also kind
smarmy.
of don't like him. Like, what is this? What anyway?
Yeah, who?
I'm done, dog. But
I'm
this
done,
humiliating.
dog.
He might have to retire after this because
That's it,
like
dog.
I don't see how you come back from this. This is just low. Hey y'all, do me a favor and like and subscribe. It helps out big time in the algorithm. Click the bell as well for notifications when videos drop, and watch that video on screen right now. You know you want to.
I think this is one of the most successful military operations that we've seen in the United States.
Will has his White House talking points down almost 100%. I'm not sure there was an original thought there.
We're a week in and people are already losing their composure over this.
The #1 trending hashtag on social media the last 9 days has been #SendBarron. So if that tells you anything about where the American public is at.
Yep, send Barron. He's #1. Put him on the front lines. Barron on the front lines. I've decided to send my son Barron to the front lines. We MAGA, we look out for our own. Even if I'm a billionaire, I'm still going to send my firstborn son. That's how we think. If he dies, he dies. Who cares?
They don't have an
He's going to take the first draft.
appetite for sending ground troops to the Middle East.
If you want to say 90% MAGA supports this, then you have to account for at least 40% of the people that were once MAGA are not MAGA anymore. Otherwise, it makes no sense.
President Obama once said that he could see his poll numbers rise and fall with the price of gas. That doesn't bode well for the current President Trump. Prices surged this morning after missiles pounded Iranian refineries.
What? His poll's already
oil
at
to rain from
20%.
the
He's
sky.
going to be at 10%.
Iran says it will respond by attacking oil facilities across the Gulf. Economic chaos is inevitable. That's why Senator Lindsey Graham, the unofficial spokesman for war, debuted a new justification this weekend. Change the regime, control the oil.
Oil prices up 27% in a week. You've got the president wanting a $1.5 trillion defense budget in 27. The idea that the Pentagon is about to come to you for $50 billion on these strikes to Iran. How are you going to answer?
Best money ever spent. Was it worth to America to take down a religious Nazi regime who's trying to build a nuclear weapon to deliver to America?
How about one that already has a
really
bunch?
Good investment. When this regime goes down, we're going to have a new Mideast. We're going to make a ton of money.
Well, making the case for war needs to happen at its
right away.
outset for all the reasons I explained last week. You can't plausibly declare victory without first defining what victory is, and you have to bring the public with you as they shoulder the enormous cost of war in lives and in dollars. There is belatedly a clear message on these spiking prices, but we're hearing it after the fact.
This is a short-term disruption for the long-term gain.
Short-term pain for the long-term gain.
Short-term pain be for long-term gain.
We're going to have some short-term pain with long-term gain.
Short-term pay for a long-term gain.
Some short-term pain, yes, but we've got some long-term gain. Short-term spike for a long-term
Wow.
Some short-term pain for American consumers. We may have to deal with that in the short term.
Short-term and temporary.
Temporary, short-term pain.
It's going to suck in the short term.
Some short-term pain.
Short-term pain. We have to focus on the short term.
Short term.
Short-term. Short-term. Short-term and long-term.
Short-term blip. Hopefully this is a short-term pain.
And when it comes to short term, well, the Iranians might have a different view. Meet the new boss, same as the old boss. Mojtaba Khamenei is the new Ayatollah, replacing his assassinated father.
It's
Far from
Khomeini.
being a US or an Israeli pick, he's a radical hardliner. He has a singular mission of saving the Iranian regime, and he enters the war in the mood for vengeance, with much of his family obliterated. And just as the pro-regime Iranians don't even need to change their chants, it looks like Iran won't be changing its strategy either. Their mission has always been to sow chaos. It used to be in the shadows through proxies. Now it's in plain sight. Chaos for oil prices as refineries go up in smoke. Chaos for the Gulf as tourism and business are choked off. Chaos for the Iranian people. And from where we sit today, it's very hard to see how this doesn't spell chaos for Donald Trump, for the United States, and for the rest of the world.
This is true, mate.
Well, joining me now is Christiana
This is
Amanpour,
very
Chief
true.
International Anchor for CNN and host of the X-Files
Christiana
podcast.
Amanpour!
Christiana, I can't think of any better people
Okay,
to talk
she's
to,
all right.
to try and make
Most of the time.
sense of this chaos. Can you make sense of what is happening right now?
Yes and no. You
Yes and
correctly
no, mate.
said that there has been no articulated casus belli, but most importantly, no articulated end game and end strategy by Israel and the United States.
We
On the
have
other
no
hand,
plan.
Iran did
We have
clearly,
thoughts of a plan.
tell all its Gulf neighbors
Just
that
thoughts
if it was going to be in what
of
clearly
a
is
plan.
a battle for regime survival, that it would A, attack Israel, B, attack the US bases in the Gulf states, and C, start attacking their economies as well, given that a lot of the strikes are happening from that region and from those bases. So they say it's not chaos, it's we have no choice, this is a battle for survival. But I think what you started by saying is clearly what they're doing in the Gulf is turning the Gulfies against them. So that's not good if they want to make friends and influence people, especially influence Trump to try to stop the war by ratcheting up the pain.
We have small
But I
ideas
think
of a
the
plan.
most troubling thing, as you pointed out, is that now, more than a week into this war, which remember was described as necessary because of an imminent threat, for which there was no evidence provided, and most people don't believe there was imminent threat. So it's a war of choice. No support for it in the United States.
No one
in terms
believes
of
that.
polls,
Yeah,
60% plus against
they're not even
it.
pretending to
No
believe
case made to the public, no approval from Congress, et cetera, et cetera. And you know what? I'm just looking across at a clipping I had from weeks before. Trump offers few details as strikes on Iran loom. That's even before the war, much less now. So this is a problem because, as you pointed out in some of the clips you had, one of the conditions that Trump has put is unconditional surrender. And as you mentioned, the person who's now become the so-called supreme leader is more of the same. And this is a hard-line religious, some might call it fanatic, but a religious, deeply rooted, multiple layers of administrative, 47 years of building this regime that ain't going to cry uncle. It might be beaten, but it doesn't.
She's right.
And who would it surrender to, by the way? There are no Americans on the ground.
Correct.
Who does it surrender to? So the military might be doing a certain thing, but the politics of how you get out of it, I'm talking from the U.S. side now, is still incredibly unclear, Piers.
Yeah, and this son of the Ayatollah, the new, as you put it, so-called supreme leader, who now will have a massive target on his back, presumably. But he is somebody who's coming in who's reputed to be at least, if not more, hardline than his father. But also, he's just lost his father, his mother, his wife, and several children, I think, in this war so far, which is, enough. I remember interviewing Netanyahu a few years ago for CNN, actually, and I went to his office in Jerusalem, and there he has a picture of his brother, who was the commander in the raid on Entebbe. And in fact, he was the only, as you know, the only person who lost his life that day. And as Netanyahu began to tell the story, he began to cry on camera as he was talking to me. And it really stuck with me because it made me realize how personal it all was for him. And I feel the same way in a different way, but about this this new supreme leader. He will be deeply grieving the loss of his closest family members here, and he's already a radical hardliner. The idea that he's going to suddenly, throw the towel in, surrender, do any kind of deal, I think is for the birds.
Well, look, on the face of it, it looks that way. It's really interesting that you bring up the personal aspect from Benjamin Netanyahu. You know that some have suggested that for President Trump, it is also somewhat personal because there was an assassination attempt. They say it was backed by Iran, all of that kind of stuff. And one that didn't get so far as to fire any weapons, that is what I'm talking about. But still, personal. Even, do you remember George H.W. Bush? They say, the war against Saddam Hussein was also partly personal. Talking about the Iranian side, though, before this happened, I was in Doha at the annual Doha Forum, and I met with the deputy Iranian foreign minister. And he was waxing on about how they were trying to restrict. This is before the demonstrations that they put down so brutally and so bloodily. This is at the beginning of December. Oh, we're letting women walk around without their veils. We're doing this. We're doing that. We want to make a deal with the United States, et cetera, et cetera. But he said, in June, there was this 12-day war. They killed so many of our leaders. And he said, there is now blood between us. So imagine they said that in June, way before Khamenei and the others. Now the leader of their revolution has been killed. Now, from what I gather, Piers,
when you say
this was because Israel felt, A, it had a target of opportunity, B, it felt that you go in and you get the head first, and that, they thought, was going to
get the head.
Collapse or accelerate the collapse of the rest of the regime. If the head is gone, the country is demoralized.
Dude, we've heard this before.
What do you mean? The leaders will want to, perhaps try to, call for an end to this or whatever. They hoped and planned for it to be the first big blow in gradually cracking the regime. Well, that hasn't worked. And as you say, by appointing Mojtaba, who was not necessarily in the front running before his father was killed. A, as you said, they have a new supreme leader called Khamenei, and B, one that is pretty hardline.
Khamenei,
not Khamenei, a huge amount about
right?
He may decide to be pragmatic. It's unclear. But what we do know about him is that he has very close ties to the IRGC, the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps. And it's right now the IRGC that is in charge. And if anybody wasn't clear about that, what happened over the weekend showed it. You remember the so-called, we're talking in degrees now, relatively, the moderate president, secular Masoud Pezeshkian, actually came out and apologized to the Gulf allies, to Turkey, to Azerbaijan for stuff that was going their way. Within seconds, Trump decided to go on Truth Social and say, see, they're surrendering. Within further seconds, I'm probably exaggerating and collapsing the time, but minutes, let's say, the IRGC came out and said, no, sorry, I don't know what you're saying, Mr. President Pezeshkian, my president. No, we will still continue to attack as long as they are allowing their countries to attack us. So they sent more missiles. So you can see who so far is being empowered by this war on Iran, because it is a war for their very survival now, unlike others.
Yeah, that's
Small
that's
businesses
true.
drive our economy, but securing capital is a constant struggle. There's 36 million small businesses in the United States.
I'm not going to build a secure capital. What are you talking about, buddy? Hello? Hello?
Within seconds,
protesters in January, where up to 30,000 were slaughtered. The IRGC clearly have a grip on the country. It's also clear that I'm sure the American military and the Israeli military are scoring a lot of damage against the Iranian forces and against their military capability. I'm sure that's happening, but there's no sign of that fueling any kind of rebellion. But also what is happening at the same time, which I think could be incredibly impactful, is that the strategy of the Iranians to go after the Gulf states, but to do it in a way which is really intimidating tourists and expats who live over there and so on, could completely change the dynamic of those countries. They are run by rulers who have built new business models around sport, entertainment, and tourism. I'm talking about Saudi Arabia and Qatar and Dubai and other places. But you're seeing an exodus of people now from these states who have, because the safety that they took for granted has been just blown out of the water. And at the same time, you're seeing obviously the economic pressure of the Strait of Hormuz being pretty much closed. And you put the combined effect with the rocketing oil prices, rocketing gas prices, the huge impact on which it inevitably will have on inflation, not least in America, that I think you're going to get huge pressure from the rulers of the Gulf states to try and bring this thing to an end, because their whole new business model, which has been trying to move away from oil, which they know is eventually going to run out, is literally going up in smoke.
Oh, really?
It really is. So let me take that part first and then go back to the people's movement inside Iran. So, of course, I mean, basically what you're saying is a fact that for decades, the Gulf states, the Persian Gulf states, have been banking on stability and security to allow all these people from all over the world, stability and security, those are the key words, right? That it's a safe place, it's a permissive place for all those activities that you just laid out. So I've been talking to some people from there, people in, important positions, and they, there's no love lost between them and Iran. They always thought Iran is a threat and it needs to be, controlled, but they didn't want this war. And I find this interesting because some people say, oh, they really did want it. They just didn't want to say it publicly. But they're saying that they're surprised by the massive retaliation of Iran. And they kind of knew this was going to happen. Certainly on my program, the Saudi intelligence minister said, well, I'm surprised that Trump was surprised or Israel was surprised or the Gulf states were surprised, because Iranian officials came to each and every one of the governments there in the lead up to the war saying this and this and this is what we're going to do. So Iran's apparently its aim is to create enough pain there for them to weigh in with Trump and to try to stop it. So that's one thing. But the other thing is they also say, look, because I asked them, how are you going to continue having American bases on your territory? Because the very basic contract that these bases would also be used to protect you is not happening. The Americans have sent the Allies have sent all their anti-missile defenses to Israel, but apparently none to the Gulf, that we can tell. So what's the what do you get out of having these bases other than, being sitting targets? And they said to me, look, it's very likely that we're all going to have big conversations after this war about what we do and whether we're going to keep hosting these bases. I don't know what they're going to decide, but I think it's interesting that it's now for the first time a real active thing. The other thing is, a lot of these governments have told me, well, some,
fuck is this chat?
that they believed that the talks in wherever they were, the mediated talks with in Geneva through Oman with Witkoff and Kushner and the Iranians were close to producing an actual satisfactory deal on the nuclear. So that was one thing. They really thought that was going to happen. And the Omani foreign minister even went to the US and said that publicly to the administration and to the news organizations. Ooh. You're right about the people of Iran, because nobody is going to come out under the bombings, right? Because, that's the fear first, that the bombings could really kill them and that their regime will kill them. And right now, the regime is bringing out supporters, and they are intimidating those who might be protesters who are not on the streets right now. So that's not happening. And the other thing is that don't take anybody's word for it, except for the American intelligence group, the DNI, was reported by the Washington Post and the New York Times that in a classified briefing, they told the administration that even a long war would be unlikely to topple the theocracy. Add to that Trump saying that he doesn't mind if he deals with a religious leader, and he doesn't really care about democracy for Iran. You have to wonder for the Iranian people right now, although they desperately, desperately want an end to this ruthless regime.
Yeah, it's an extraordinary situation. Just want to end, Christian, with this breaking story today about the Iranian women's football team who've been competing in Australia and have been denied, it's reported, asylum by Australia. And Donald Trump has intervened and said Australia's making a terrible humanitarian mistake by allowing the Iran national women's soccer team to be forced back to Iran, where they will most likely be killed. Don't do it, Mr. Prime Minister. This is Anthony Albanese. Give asylum. The US will take them if you don't. Thank you for attention, as matter, President Trump. The point being that the Iranian football team lost its last group match in the Women's Asia Cup on Sunday, and they had earlier not sung the Iranian national anthem, and the belief is that if they go back to Iran, they will face potential death. What do you make of this situation? Should Australia rethink its decision? And what do you think of Trump offering to step in?
Well, this is the first time hearing of it, so I'm just thinking on the fly right now. I do remember what you're talking about, because we also reported it, that they were not singing the national anthem. Then the next day they did sing the national anthem. We assumed that they were pressured to do that. I would say that given what the regime has done to the dissenters in the street, and then the rounding up of anybody who might have participated in the protests or even helped the wounded
sound familiar,
i.e. doctors,
sounds familiar,
have rounded up tens of thousands of them, and they're in jail. So I would say the Iranian women's team, have good reason to be very afraid. And I'm just thinking, I read this, I'm assuming it's true. The Sri Lankan government gave asylum to the surviving sailors who were torpedoed by the United States. You remember a few days ago?
Yes, I do.
An Iranian ship that was not in, it was in international waters. It had come from exercises in India. It was torpedoed. A lot of people were killed.
Hey.
Yalda Hakim.
I think the only really remaining threat
got into airports, and mayhem followed because it hadn't been. Just sitting here trying to be objective about what I'm seeing with my own eyes. I had very vivid memories.
I got a pee chat.
2003. I was the editor of the Daily Mirror newspaper in the UK. We were the Labour supporting paper, so Tony Blair's supporting newspaper, and we took an anti-war position. And, I remember all the arguments in the run-up to that war. I remember the initial early military spectacular success that that was enjoyed by the allies in Iraq. But then I remember the cold, hard reality setting in of what followed that, and no real plan for what was going to happen with Iraq, the rise of ISIS, the fueling of Al-Qaeda, and so on. Complete mayhem followed because it hadn't been properly thought through. And what concerns me about this is not actually the clear, obvious military successes that have been enjoyed by the American and Israeli military, as you would expect. The American military is the most powerful in the history of the planet. It's not that so much. It's just that I think that with their responses, the Iranians are being quite tactically smart. What they're doing is they're trying to put the fear of God into people living in the Gulf states, many of whom are expats from other countries. They're trying to get them to leave, which many of them are doing. They're trying to destroy the business model of places like Dubai, which is it's a fun, completely safe place to come. And they're doing that by hitting hotels and airports and so on. And at the same time, they're controlling ruthlessly the Strait of Hormuz, where 20% of the world's oil flows. And, that is extremely concerning, not just because of the huge spike in oil prices and gas prices, but also because of the geopolitical element to that, involving China's reliance on it and Russia's involvement and so on. So I much as I'd like to be as optimistic as you are, I look at it and think, they may be being defeated in terms of military firepower, but the regime remains intact. They've replaced one Khamenei with another. The IRGC clearly have a stranglehold over the country. The combination of the bombing, putting the fear of God into Iranians so they're staying in, and the IRGC's control means there are no rebellions on the street that we can see. So Trump's idea that this would be an organic rebellion off the back of the bombing raids by the Iranian people is not happening. And I'm looking at it thinking, well, okay, maybe it will be over in a week, but I'm not quite sure how this ends as simply as you think it's going to. Whatever.
All right. So there's probably about 5 or 6 big arguments that you made there. So I'll try and address each of them in turn. First, let's start with the Straits of Hormuz. I think you're overstating the extent to which the Iranians have control over the Strait of Hormuz. Their entire navy is at the bottom of the ocean, and the Americans are there to guard it. And I think the only really remaining threat is some of the missile threat from the south, which is being aggressively degraded by the United States. You made a really big claim, and I think this is extremely important. You made a claim about how the other Arab countries, because they are being bombed by Iran, that this is a sophisticated strategy that's going to get them to question their continued work with the United States. I think it's the opposite.
No.
I think they all realize they no longer want to live under Iranian blackmail. And I think they look at Iran flinging missiles in every direction. I mean, a couple days ago, they flung missiles at Azerbaijan. And that's an important thing to realize.
Yeah, hello.
The leader of Azerbaijan, Aliyev, was the one leader in the region to give condolences to the...
They're flinging them at U.S. bases, by the way. U.S. bases, chat.
Death of Khamenei. And how did they respond? By launching missiles at a school in Azerbaijan. And you saw
just
him
to be
immediately...
clear, well, on this point, just to be clear, just crystal clear, I'm not saying for a moment the Gulf states won't continue to support America. In fact, the complete opposite. I do believe it's been a massive strategic error, actually, by Iran to go after the Gulf states in the way they have. But
what do you
think
mean?
from
Why?
A tactical point of view, there's no...
To go after the the states that have the U.S. bases in them? Am I wrong?
No doubt that in the short term, it has put the fear of God into people.
Oh my God!
And I think it may question the resolve of the Arab Gulf
fucking
states,
delusional.
of the leaders to want this war to be remotely prolonged, because they can see that the longer it goes on, the more damaging it gets to all of their collective interests. So in fact, I think they are falling in behind America.
Disagree, chat.
They hate what Iran is doing. We saw that from the Qatari Prime Minister overnight in an interview with Yalda Hakim from Sky News saying that. But that doesn't mean they want this war to continue. So the question then becomes, if there's a lot of pressure on the economics of this war, never mind the loss of life and so on the economics of the war, then how does this actually end?
So I think, I think
good
it
question.
actually ends up
We want
working
you
the
to tell
opposite
us.
way.
Oh,
I
really?
think that what the Saudis and the UAE and Qatar and Bahrain will decide is they don't want to permanently live under the threat of Iranian blackmail. And that's what this would be if they made an early peace because they were scared about their economics.
I am still we believe nations exist, nation states exist, we have them. We need to recognize nation states' sovereignty, sovereignty. Blah, I can't speak. I'm so tired. Anyway, yeah. Recognize it. Hello? What's so hard to understand here?
Then Iran would just hold this over their heads indefinitely while they built up a huge ballistic missile capability, while they restarted their nuclear program. And then basically these countries would be at the mercy of Iran.
Yeah, because everyone else around them has nuclear or support by us has a base. Hello? Are we delusional, sir? Do you not understand how this kind of thing works at all? You are like a 20-year-old who looks like a 40-year-old who is cosplaying as a Gen Xer.
Iran. I think so. What that means is that the Arab countries will decide in their own interest that they want this war finished, and that even if somehow the United States steps out of the way, I think they'd end up finishing it on their own right, taking advantage of the weakened Iranian regime right now to try and impose their will on it, even if in a world where the United States retreated from the scene.
Okay, let's bring in the other two guests. Owen Schroyer, what do you say to Will's argument?
That's
Very
a
bullish,
bad take. Okay, let's have. We better have a better
ending
take
quickly,
than this.
and it's going to be a massively big win for the United States.
Big W,
Israel.
yeah.
Well, I think Will has his White House talking points down almost 100%. I'm not sure there was an original thought there. The one thing he missed was you're not supposed to call this a war, Will.
He read
Remember,
a book in the last
you're not
decade.
supposed to call it that. Here we go.
You insulted me. We can do this all day.
I'd love to, Will. I also find it funny that he keeps saying Iran blackmail, another talking point that is coming from Western media, as if we didn't just see the Epstein list and all the connections to Israel revealed with that. He says Iran blackmail.
I know, right?
As far as the conclusions that we're reaching here, I'm not so sure. I'm not so sure about these conclusions about the Gulf nation states. You know, when this thing first broke out, they said, oh, it'll be all the NATO countries and the EU countries and the Gulf nation states, everybody lining up against Iran. Well, it hasn't really been that smooth. It seems
England wouldn't come from us. That stupid island. The UK, not worth a shit. We call it Shit Island.
Sure about what's going on with this war. And, you know, you bring up what happened with Azerbaijan. They come out and say, okay, we're against Iran, and then they get hit with a bomb, and you don't even scratch your head for a second. You don't even think for 1 second that could be a false flag, as if these things don't happen in war.
Wrong.
So I think that there's a lot.
They came out and gave condolences for the death of Khamenei, and then got bombed.
Okay. Well, we'll see how this all turns out. I don't think it's going as smoothly as Will likes to represent. Like I said, I'm not sure there's an original thought there. This is the neocon. Will represents the neocon faction of right-wing politics that we thought we defeated in 2016.
According to NATO sources, currently Azerbaijan is supposedly going to ally with America, and we're going to put a base there. We don't have one there yet. So that would explain why they are bombing. I didn't say it was okay to bomb a school, but if that's what they did. But my point is hello, they're bombing the U.S. allies because guess what? They can't bomb us. And guess what? They're a country and they can respond. You expect them not to respond? No, no one expects them not to respond. That's the whole actual point of this whole thing is to have them respond.
This is the opposite of what Trump ran
to
on.
cause
And
the
that's the big
Armageddon.
thing here.
Hello?
We can debate about war and foreign policy. These things aren't going anywhere. The problem is this is a total betrayal of Trump's base. This is exactly against everything he ran on. And the 1984 Orwellian nature of the Board of Peace launching war after war after war and sitting here screaming about how Iran is firing missiles all over the world while Israel is in a war with 7 separate countries at the same time. The irony and the hypocrisy should not be lost on your audience, Piers.
Okay, let me bring in Caroline. You were a former Trump spokeswoman.
Oh,
where does all this sit with Donald Trump's repeated mantra when he campaigned in the 2024 election of America first, no more interference in foreign wars, particularly in the Middle East, and now here America is in the biggest interference imaginable in the Middle East, taking on Iran in this full-blooded, full-throttle way. Where does that sit with how he campaigned?
Yeah, Pierce, first and foremost, I love the American military. I love our troops, just like millions of Americans do. And that's why we were so excited when a candidate like Donald Trump came on the scene
I bet you were.
and talked about no more involvement in the Middle East.
Because he lied to you.
Wars. And I would go on TV and say that on behalf of the president during the 2024 campaign. And I was
How do you feel now?
proud to do it. I was enthusiastic to do it. It wasn't just that President Trump was talking about that. No more involvement in the Middle East. Criticisms of our past involvement in the Middle East were extremely valid. An indictment of the neocon political class establishment and their record in the Middle East. It was the passion with which he talked about it. You can go back to 2016 and you can see the fire in him, the passion that he was talking about it with. It really electrified people and moved them to put him into the White House. And so he said no new wars. And I think people are confused right now in the base as to why it looks like we now are in a new war in the Middle East. You hear this talking point going around that 90% of MAGA supports,
Yeah, I know, right?
War.
What is that bullshit?
But that's not mathematically possible because if you look at the coalition that elected President Trump into the White House, if that was true, right, if 90% of MAGA supported this war, Nikki Haley would be in the White House right now.
Yeah,
as president.
exactly.
Marco Rubio would be president.
Oh,
the American
let's go,
people
girl.
had a chance in 2016 to elect literally anybody else besides Donald Trump, who were all on stage in that Republican primary saying we would love war with Iran. They had a chance to do that again in 2024 by picking Nikki Haley as their candidate, but instead they picked Donald Trump. I also think if 90% of MAGA supports this, I don't think your show would be getting the views that it's getting. I don't think Megyn Kelly and Tucker Carlson's show would be getting the views that it's getting. Polling is sort of an outdated way of collecting information. They say Vietnam was the first living room war, but it looks like this is the first war in the social media age. And social media is a way for you to see in real time how the public is perceiving something. We certainly use that on the campaign, I can tell you. Social media is a more accurate representation of public sentiment. You can track it in real time versus polling. So this idea that 90% of the coalition supports that just quite literally isn't possible when you look at the wide swath of people, independents, moderates, Muslims in Dearborn, Michigan, young men who all joined President Trump's coalition specifically because they were really excited about the promise of no new wars. And I guess that would be my question to Will, though, is, first and foremost, do you think that this is a war? Because,
yeah, exactly.
The
Good
president
question.
has been on the phone with reporters, a
Saying
lot of them
no.
who he calls the fake news, Politico, CNN, Axios, New York Times, on the record in those phone interviews calling it a war. The Secretary of War, has called it a war.
She's right.
But the president hasn't publicly come out and said to the American people that it's a war. So, Will, do you think this is a war, and is it a new war?
Well, it's a very good question, which I will get Will to answer. What I would say, though, is I don't think America has declared war, correct me if I'm wrong here, but since the Second World War, and yet it has repeatedly gone to war. And I do think it's a complete farce, I have to be honest with you. As someone who loves America and loves your Constitution and loves Americans, the idea that you have not been waging war repeatedly ever since World War II is ridiculous. And the idea that this is not a war.
This is true.
When the American mighty military has gone in full throttle against Iran, both at land, at sea, every imaginable way you can think of. It's crazy. Of course it's a war, isn't it, Will? Why do we pretend otherwise?
I mean, I think it's a war. I don't know what the legality of it is and why the president might want to avoid it. He might want to say to use the language.
Well, he doesn't have to clear it with Congress, does he? Well, the truth is they all do it.
I don't think any American...
They all do it. I mean, well, it's the same reason. It's the same reason Clinton.
I hear you.
Yeah, but just to finish my point,
really good reason not to do that.
It's a reason Clinton didn't do it with Kosovo. It's a reason that Obama didn't do it with Libya. If you don't call it a war, you don't need congressional approval.
Right, but then we don't get to do things like knock out 50 of the Iranian leadership in the first 5 minutes of the war, right? We lose the element of surprise. This isn't 1760s where there's no telephone communication across oceans. The sooner England hears about our wars 3 weeks later when a ship shows up, instantly the moment we declared war, the Iranians would know what's up, and that would be the end of our ability to gain the element of surprise. And that saves American lives. If we're going to do a military operation, I think that we want the commander-in-chief to do so in a way that minimizes American casualties to the extent possible. And so I think that it's totally justified for him to do that. I'm sorry, Caroline, I just am not impressed by saying that the polling doesn't say what it says. This is not just one poll that says 90% of MAGA supports it. It's consistently across all the polling that's done. You have 85% plus of Republicans supporting the president. And I think that it's because they understand that the president is not conducting the war in the manner of George W. Bush, that it's not stupid. You have to understand, this is not the... He created the space for negotiation after the 12-day war. You need to remember, he hit those 3 nuclear sites and then immediately forced a ceasefire, including telling Netanyahu and Israel to turn the planes around when they had been struck after the ceasefire deadline. He wanted the negotiation. He wanted to be reasonable. But the problem is the Iranians, it's like the Black Knight and Monty Python. They refused to accept that they were beaten and refused to make any concessions. You need to just go listen to Steve Witkoff, who Tucker and everybody loved a year ago, explain what his negotiations were like. They opened the negotiation by saying, we have 60% enriched uranium for 11 nuclear bombs. We have an unalienable right to enrich, and we're not going to give you anything on the negotiation table that you didn't get militarily. Like, what is President Trump supposed to do? And if he cowers in the face of this,
okay, but I would throw
I'll let you go.
Because they do. They're right. I'm sorry.
Hang on. Look, on this very point that Will just
How else do you protect yourself in this world?
And I'd like to bring Owen back in here just to respond to this. But this is what Antony Blinken, the former Secretary of State, said about Israel trying to pressurize Barack Obama to launch military strikes on Iran, and saying they would just attack themselves if Washington refused. Take a listen to this.
Back during the Obama administration, the Israelis were pushing President Obama to take military action against Iran, and were warning that they would do it themselves if he didn't. And he wouldn't, because he thought the better way to get at the nuclear program, which is what we were focused on, in the days after the October 7th attack on Israel, the horrific attack on Israel by Hamas, the Israelis were insisting that in the north, Hezbollah from Lebanon was about to attack. And they wanted to strike preemptively against Hezbollah. And President Biden said, look, we're with you. We'll always be with you in defending Israel. And if you're attacked, we're there. But we're not there if you're going to start something. And we came within about 30 minutes of having a war in the north based on bad information that the Israelis had.
It wasn't bad information.
I found that really interesting.
That wasn't bad information. It was intentionally bad.
You know, has Donald Trump been played
to start the war? They've been trying to start the war forever.
Has he been sold a pup? Was he told, look, you know, they're going to go after us. We're going to have to attack it imminently. You're either in with us or you're not. And they said, okay, well, we better come in. I mean, is that what's happened here?
Well, I think you have two separate things happening. I think we have to recognize the power of the Israeli lobby. I think this is something that the average American is now very aware of, the power of the Israeli lobby. And so now AIPAC is trying to find new ways to fund their candidates that don't go through AIPAC because it has such a negative stench on it now. But then there's Netanyahu. So AIPAC buying our candidates to essentially sell out America's best interest is one thing. But Netanyahu is a completely different issue. He's been lying to the American people and the United States Congress since the 1980s. He's been saying that Iran has days until they have a nuclear weapon. So obviously somebody's being dishonest here. It wouldn't be the first time that Israeli intelligence has lied to us. I could look at some recent times. I think the whole story about Iranian drones off the East Coast, I believe that was false Israeli intelligence. I think that the strike on that school that just happened in Iran, I think that was bad Israeli intelligence that we acted on. So I think Israel has been giving us bad intelligence, whether intentionally or accidentally, for years. And I find it funny that we sit here, and again, it's this blatant hypocrisy and irony, except it's not funny because we say, oh, we're saving American lives. Well, at least 7 American lives have been lost in this war so far that we know of. We also had 3 people shot and killed here at a retaliation attack at a bar in Austin, Texas, where I live. And as far as this number of 90% MAGA supports this, well, you can only believe that if you're counting the fact that the Mark Levins of the world who support this war more than anything, they get ratioed on every single post. And so they're the ones that are supporting this. They're the least popular. Tucker Carlson, whatever you think of his politics, he's more popular now. And so I just don't see these things adding up in real life. And I think the issue is we've been dealing with this centralized media and even a centralized political narrative that's been able to kind of get away with lying and deceiving the American people. Maybe that's because they were distracted. Maybe that's because social media didn't exist before. Maybe a combination of the two. But it just doesn't work anymore. We're not buying these talking points. And again, if you want to have a foreign policy debate, that's fine. The average American is sick of what's happened in the Middle East. And this is what resonated with that person while Trump was campaigning since 2015. We have spent trillions of dollars, at least $5 trillion. Trillions of dollars in the Middle East. That's what we've done. And we've gotten nothing for it. We've gotten absolutely nothing but our blood and treasure in that region and nothing to show for it. And so Americans are sick of it. We would much rather spend $1 billion a day as the cost of this war. It's up to $10 billion now. We would much rather see that invested in our own infrastructure, our own people, our own country, whatever it takes. That's what this administration was supposed to be about. So if you want to say 90% MAGA supports this, then you have to account for at least 40% of the people that were once MAGA are not MAGA anymore. Otherwise, it makes no sense. And if we continue to let these neocons co-opt the actual America First conservative movements, then we're never going to have any real right-wing or conservative victories for this country.
Okay, I want to give Caroline the last word. We've run out of time, but Caroline, just very quickly, Polymarket, the prediction markets, asked US forces enter Iran by March the 14th, 21%, March the 31st, 44%, and by the end of the year, 68%. So they're seeing money coming in, quite a lot of money, at Polymarket, betting that the longer this goes on, the more of a stalemate it is, the more pressure the Trump administration will come under and the IDF to commit troops on the ground. What do you think, just very quickly, that would do politically for the Republicans with both the midterms and potentially 2028?
There's absolutely zero support within the Republican Party or outside of that electorate for U.S. ground troops in the Middle East. I mean, the #1 trending hashtag on social media the last 9 days has been #SendBarron.
Exactly.
So if that tells you anything about where the American public is at, they don't have an appetite for sending ground troops to the Middle East, especially for objectives that remain unclear and for a war that doesn't seem to have a clear purpose. You know, the administration has offered many reasons for going to war with Iran, but 2 of them have been in direct conflict with each other. One has been that Iran was an imminent threat to the United States, and the other has been that Iran has never been weaker, and so that's where we had to strike. Well, you can't be an imminent threat and as weak as you've ever been at the same time. Both those statements can't be true. And you see a lot of people who I think personally have not been loyal to the president in the past, and certainly loyal to his ideology. You see, Mike Pence and John Bolton, who have come on this show, championing this conflict. But the question that I think the larger American audience is asking is, are we just going to be repeating the mistakes of the past? And the question that I don't see these voices that are cheering on the war having to answer is, just answer bluntly, how many U.S. troops are you okay losing, and how much are you okay having it cost? And with every objective that you lay out, every goal that you lay out, you should have to answer how many troops are you okay losing, what units do you want them to come from, and how much are you okay with it costing? Those are basic questions that you should be able to ask if you're waging war and answer.
Yeah, and remember the words of one of America's great modern military leaders, David Petraeus, the general, who said, the first question you ask is, how does this end? And I'm not sure anyone's really got a firm handle on that. Thank you very much indeed to my panel. I appreciate it. Joining me now is the former MP and host of The Rest is Politics, Rory Stewart. Rory, welcome back to Uncensored.
Thank you for having me.
What's up, buddy?
I was amused in a kind of ironic way to see you and your co-host, Alistair Campbell, debating this when it all flared up a week ago, and Alistair giving the world a lecture about the need to adhere to international law when it comes to taking this kind of military action in the Middle East. Some of us have long memories, Rory. I remember 2003 when I ran the Daily Mirror and said the very same thing to your co-host, Alistair Campbell, repeatedly, when we said it would be a very bad idea to invade Iraq without a second UN resolution. The wider question, other than teasing you about your co-host, and your facial expressions have given me all the answer I need. But rather than tease you about that, on the bigger picture, is international law now just finished as a concept? I keep hearing the argument from everyone, well, if the others aren't adhering to it, why do we have to? If they're doing this, we should be able to do this. none of them even call them wars anymore. The Russians call the invasion of Ukraine a special operation. Now we're told this is not a war either. This is, a conflict or whatever it may be. Are we just circumnavigating international law, do you think?
Well, let me take my defense of Alistair for red, so we won't get called down that rabbit hole. But you're right. Listen, something fundamental has changed. I think Trump's intervention in Iran is the beginning of a completely new world. It's been going on for 18 months, the signs of this, but this has shattered the order that America built after the war. America basically, after the Second World War, created a rules-based order, even if it was hypocritical, even if things went wrong, where broadly speaking, if you were a Western European country or you were in the Gulf, America seemed generous, relatively reliable, relatively predictable, and it followed process. Now, you can disagree, but it went. Presidents had conversations with Congress. They were relatively consistent about what they were doing. Occasionally, they'd try to go to the UN. All that's been blown out of the water. Suddenly now we have a president who has not consulted with his traditional allies and who has put the Gulf countries in a really difficult situation.
Had you been Prime Minister, Rory, as many people would have liked you to have been, I think my mother's one of them. I think I've had that conversation with her.
Well
had you been Prime Minister, had you been Prime Minister when Donald Trump made the call and said we want to use UK bases to launch our aircraft from, we don't need you to supply any forces, we don't want you to be proactively involved at this stage, we just want to use your bases, would you have let the Americans do that? Tony Blair, the architect of course, the Iraq War, along with George Bush, was emphatic at the weekend in a private meeting that he would have absolutely done that, and Keir Starmer should have done that. Would you have done that?
I think Blair is completely wrong. Completely wrong. This is an illegal, immoral, reckless war that is going to make the world a much more dangerous place. It's already driving up the price of oil. It's destroying the security of American allies in the Gulf. It's not achieving what it set out to achieve in Iran. Anyone who thinks that this is the path to some lovely, liberal, democratic, stable regime in Iran at the moment, there's no sign of that. And of course, it's a tragedy. It's a tragedy for Britain. We've been a very strong ally of the US since the 1950s. But we cannot be in a position where the United States does not consult with us, doesn't talk to us, has no interest in our views, and then just announces it's going to drag us into the war by using our bases.
But isn't the cold, hard reality that if we get attacked, and we're vulnerable, I mean, the UK armed force has been reduced to such a degree, you could put all the army inside Wembley Stadium and have a lot of empty seats. We've been exposed, I think, with two ships which can't even leave yet for a week or two to join the action, even if we want them to. There's a general feeling from all our armed force leaders that we are, really heavily vulnerable right now. If we were attacked, say Putin decided to have a go, the first call we would make would be to the United States, to Donald Trump. And what concerns me about this is, I'm not disputing for a moment anything you say. Many people feel the same way. But this so-called special relationship, it does rely occasionally on doing things. There was a very interesting piece I read at the weekend about Margaret Thatcher when Ronald Reagan, I think it was, wanted her help. And, her every instinct and every one of her advisors said, do not help. But she slept on it overnight and went, we have to help. They're our biggest ally, and they're the one that we have to help in these moments, even if our instincts tell us not to. That it actually, although it's in the short-term national interest to say we can't do this, the longer-term, bigger picture national interest of the UK is that we have to have the Americans on side. Because when we get attacked, they're the first port of call.
I mean, unfortunately, Trump has shattered that world. I mean, if we were in a world in which we felt we could rely on the US, in which we believed that he believed in protecting Europe against Russia, that he believed in NATO, that he respected European sovereignty, fine. But he's trying to create a world in which he effectively says he gets to do whatever he wants, whenever he wants, and everybody has to come along with it. And there's no quid pro quo. It would be naive to think that because you helped him out somewhere, he would ever act except in his own national interest. The only thing that Donald Trump would think about if he was asked to do something is whether it would help Donald Trump. and secondarily, maybe his idea of what the US wants. The idea that he shows loyalty, gratitude, forget it. Look at the Gulf. These people have given him airplanes, they've invested hundreds of billions, they've given him property contracts, and without consulting them, he's basically set out to destroy their economies overnight. That's what you learn. I mean, you cannot be in a position with somebody who's behaving somewhere between a bully and a gangster of saying to him, there's nothing we can do. And that was the risk, actually, that we almost had with Greenland, which is you had people like Mandelson, our disgraced ambassador in the US, saying, well, maybe we just have to give him Greenland because the really big picture is Ukraine. And, you know, we're too dependent on them for defense. And this just plays into his hands because he basically thinks Europe's weak, the UK's weak, they just have to do what he says. And that world has changed. We cannot continue in that relationship because if you're in that kind of relationship, you will be abused forever.
But here's the flaw in that argument, which is that he may be right in his assessment. You know, he was right when he said that the NATO member countries were not paying their dues. I think he's been right to say that Europe has not stepped up properly when it's needed to in the last few decades.
I gotta go, chat.
He's
I'm
right
sorry.
that America has to carry the lion's share.
I was hoping to get to the next video. We almost finished this one. Anyway, I gotta go. See you tomorrow. See you for Tuesday. For fucking Tuesday, isn't it? Tomorrow.